Live from Studio A in Presscorps World Headquarters, this is Zero Dark Presscorps. It's a live, community-based call-in show, fielding your thoughts on and tales from the Foxhole War. So join the Discord right now through the link below, sign in through the call queue text channel, and hop in the voice lounge for a chance to share your story. Tonight's developer guest, lead developer Markfoot. And now, your host, 13-time winner of the Geoffrey Jennings Award for Excellence in Journalism, Geoffrey Jennings.
There we go. All right. I always love this, the awkward minute where Mark or the guest has to enter the room, and we could do some warm-up talk like, hey, how have you been? It's like, good, but I kind of want to ask you on the air, so we just kind of sit here looking at each other's names quietly, so that's great. But in any case, yeah, how are you, Mark?
I'm quite good. My voice is somewhat gone because I had a long day of meetings.
Oh, no.
But I will try my best, but I might do a bit more listening today than talking. I'm definitely here to talk, but maybe maybe 20% less than usual. Let's say that.
Okay. All right. We'll see how it goes. I will speak on behalf of the developers. So 1.0 will come tomorrow, and a lot of there's literally from here on out nothing but bug fixes. So no new features, but. Yeah, no, it's getting there. It's already the end of January, or past halfway, January 21st. So it's crazy. I didn't think we'd actually get here, but here we are. I'm gonna say that again when we reach 1.0. In terms of Presscorps happenings, which everyone cares about, that was sarcastic. But in terms of Presscorps happenings, I think I might actually leave the radio on after this because I got a lot of back end things to do. Continue to do a lot of. I will explain in further detail what those back end things are, but needless to say, it has to do with a lot of music, a lot of things that can't because the program technically uses all the music at all times, all the files. I can't mess with the files, like edit them, equalize them, or whatever. So it's either the radio's down and I work on music, or radio's up and I can't touch it. So that's how that works. But you know what? I'm going to take a break from all that. And it's really boring work, but it is what it is. We'll get you back to the radio soon enough after this. And more exciting Presscorps things along the way, and catching up on things we used to do. But we'll get there. But you know what? We're going to open up with with my opening questions. A lot of things I like to pull that I believe are a lot of the most kind of pertinent things. Maybe, I don't know, maybe people will agree and disagree on that. I used to give them a heads up. I used to give the devs heads up on these questions so that we could get the clearest answer. But Mark here told me a couple shows ago he just wants to shoot from the hip, and that's fine by me. So you know what? Here we go. Population. Mark, population is a strong deciding factor in the macro and the micro, both how a war flows overall and even down to the moment-to-moment gameplay and how that develops. How will Foxhole at 1.0 account for swings in the population, particularly, let's say 6 months? So this is after the hype has died down, or even like a year from now, right? Maybe it equalizes at some point. But, you know, how will Foxhole adjust once, because you got 1.0, that's kind of supposed to be like a full, complete experience. How do you adjust? How does the game adjust when the population adjusts as well?
Let me clarify. Are you asking if the population goes above what our shard can fill, and then what happens when it comes back down?
You know, we talked about above before, where if we reach way over capacity, you would just open up more shards. As unfortunate that would be, because we love the one user experience, or the one connected war experience, the single shard. As much as we love that, I know we can open these up so that people can actually play the damn game. Yeah. Insert joke about queues. But in terms of under, so let's say after 1.0, the game starts dipping down into the 500, 400, 300 population, which, hey, death of the game. No, not necessarily, but how like, there's still a lot of gameplay implications there. How will the game adjust for lower dips or low dips in the population?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like first of all, I hope it doesn't dip that low. But
Oh, right, absolutely.
it's
I'm just saying that if it does, because
if
yeah, go ahead.
but I think to answer the question, it's not going to be any different than how we do it right now. And in fact, I'd almost like go further and say like I'm not expecting a big revolution in terms of these sorts of issues after 1.0. Like 1.0 is not an inflection point where I've been trying to say this over and over again. It's not going to be an inflection point where suddenly all these big problems are going to be solved. It's like problems. If there was an easy answer to any of these problems, it probably would have already been done. And rather, the way we've been approaching these things is we've been trying to chip away at them over the last long while, right? And getting to the point where scaling up and down is not as bad. For example, because our player capacity now per region actually supports more players, so it supports like 200 players per region now. That actually helps us a lot because the reason why we had to sometimes open up more regions before is because it'd be hard to predict. Like a lot of players would be like, "Hey, just open up, you know, three columns," and then we'd be worried because if let's say there was a stronger showing on the first day, half the people would be in queues, right? For example, yesterday there was 1,000 players at the start of the war, right? 1,000 players in the world, and it would before we'd have to be like, hey, let's open up the whole world just in case. We don't want people in queues. But when we increased the amount of capacity per server, we don't necessarily have to open that many regions to support that many players anymore. Like for example, 4 columns can 4 times 200 is like 800 players already at the front, right?
So
So like
that's when the population goes up. What happens if it, let's say 1,000 players at the beginning, and then it starts to dip down? Will you
right.
close? Can you do? Is the opposite possible?
So within a war, our aim is to not change any regions, any number of regions within a war. So in like a 3-week war, as an example, we've kind of settled on something reasonably good because in the last long, we used to get a lot of complaints like players feel like the world's too big, want you to close up some regions. But over the last, I would say like 4 months or so, since the arms race, we haven't actually heard too many of those complaints. Maybe at the beginning when we first when we had the whole world open and there was this big spike and then it came back down a bit. But over the last couple of months, we haven't actually heard too many complaints about that, and I think it's been great for us because like we don't have to open that many regions up anymore. And then it also works for the players because a lot of them don't want necessarily tons and tons of space. So it's going to be the same. Ultimately, at 1.0, it's going to be like now. But what I hope for is that we will have an even larger world. But that shouldn't be seen as like, okay, we're always going to have large world. But it's just picture sort of a board game, and then every war you sort of draw a line on like what's the playable part of the board game, and then that's where the war happens. And we try, well, within the 3 or 4 week war, we try not to change that because we thought about ways of doing that, like maybe closing down regions, but in every case, it's like it's very difficult to do that without it being really bad for one side or the other. Like, hey, I was just about to plan a huge attack in this region. Why did you close this region down, right? So closing things down is very hard. So I think the model we have now is probably going to be more or less the model that you're going to see at 1.0. And I do want to reiterate just as a last point that, you know, don't expect a big inflection point at 1.0. The best thing to think of 1.0 is that it's going to be like a big update, right? It's going to be like the summer update last year or something of that sort. And hopefully, I always said we'd like to get around to some of the things like localization or maybe a bit more new player stuff. Hopefully, a bit more quality of life and in certain areas. But if you're kind of expecting, hey man, at 1.0, like all my problems that I've had with the game for the last year are going to be. No, it's not going to be the case.
So
If you're
actually,
not enjoying
follow
Foxhole
up on
now,
that.
yeah,
Right.
sure.
I hear you. Follow up on that. What is the point of having it 1.0 then? I know I've asked this question
Yeah.
before, but I feel like this you're falling right into it, and I gotta ask it again.
Yeah, I think it's a nice excuse to get some of those things done that we always want to get done again, like the localization, and there's some like more polishy type of things that we always had on the back burner, right? But it's like, it's like, should we really be spending tons of time tweaking these like animations at this point? I think it's going to be a combination of, it's a big update, so it's going to be like the arms race or trench warfare or something. But on top of that is an excuse for us to look at some of those polished things, because trust me, people inside the team have been like, man, when are we going to get to this issue? And it's not something necessarily players care about, right? Like it's like different people care about different things, and there's certain people on the team, like some of the artists, they're always wondering, hey, when are we going to polish that part, right? So I think it's a nice excuse to do that stuff, but it will like the game. It's just gonna be like business as usual, right? Like we're gonna push out this update, business as usual, and then hopefully after that there's gonna be a winter update next year, and so on and so forth. So I just really want to stress that point very hardly, that if you fundamentally dislike the game now, 1.0 is not going to change your mind. If you like the game now, 1.0 hopefully will have something exciting there, right? So that's, yeah.
Okay, we'll see how that pans out. But you know what? If, follow up on the first question I had, which is about the population. Is Foxhole designed with a specific size of player base in mind? Like when you implement features such as the trench system or the bunker base system and war pacing, and even back during the efficiency system, all these things, is there a specific size of player base? Like, yeah, we're always kind of like, we're implementing this with the thought of, yeah, like at least 500 to 1,000 players online or something. Like, does that cross your mind at all?
Yeah, it's a moving target. At the beginning of the project, I remember the day when we were planning out player numbers, and this is like, you gotta remember, this is back when our team was 6 people, and like Foxhole was nothing. Like it was like an idea, and we were making the first map, and it was like the Deadlands. We sat down and we were like, man, wouldn't it be cool if there was 100 people in this game? That was literally what we said, right? So that was the target then, and we sort of roughly plotted out, hey, if there was 200 people in the game, this is what we would do. Maybe we would open up a couple more regions. Then I remember when we said, if there was 1,000 people in the game, that would be just so amazing. We wouldn't have to worry about anything anymore. We'd have no problems because things would be set. That was like 4 years ago, right? So it's moving target, because that's how what we thought then. Where like 1,000 players, which happened yesterday, was sort of like a dream. And then now we sort of are like, okay, well, we think we can build out the world. We've seen the game go up to 2,000. For example, in the arms race launch last year, it went up to above 2,000. And then so it's like we're always having to kind of move that target. If like if at 1.0, see, the thing is you can't plan these things, right? You
Right.
can't. At the end of the day, like you don't know if your game is gonna tank, or you don't know if it's gonna blow up and become the next like huge thing where there's 100,000
Uh-huh.
people playing it, right?
I
And it's
think
usually
real quick, Julie, just say that I think 1.0, at least the first month, let's say, right? The first 1.0, the first 1.0 war, however long that lasts, I think that's going to be a blowout. I think that's going to be, you might actually have to open up new shards altogether, which I don't think Foxhole has done since you implemented the one world. I don't know if streamers, like big streamers, are going to get on it. I don't know, but I think it's going to be bigger. But I think what people are worried, and not to be circular with my questions here, but I think thinking ahead, and that's going to be fun. That's going to be a mess, but it's going to be a beautiful mess, right? But I think coming down from that high and seeing where the population goes from there, if things start to dip back down, I guess people are wondering, and I guess I'm kind of asking the first question again, but people are wondering, if some of the systems that were, say, big, just how logistics might get away from people if It dips down 1,000, dips down 600, which again, not necessarily the death of the game. It'll bounce back up. But just those dips is what people worry about, particularly the logistics people who feel like they have to carry more load, or maybe for people who maybe don't want to sit at a at a trench all day. And it's a moving target because population affects so much. And I'm just curious if there's any specific design applications that I guess are trying to be flexible, like say the bunker-based system or logistics. And I don't know. Closing thoughts on that one?
So you're talking about scaling systems to help
Yeah, yeah.
with the game. Um, yeah, well, I think so. There's some things that we have done to help scale up and down. Like for example, but a lot of it is like scaling up. For example, being able to when there's some need, adding in more factories when it's like we expected the arms race to have like 1,500 people. There was like not even actually. We're thinking, it's just, we're launching in August. It's not optimal time. People are going to go back to school soon, and so we're doing things to scale up, right?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of scaling down, I feel like if there is some sort of an issue, it shouldn't necessarily be tackled as a scaled down mechanic. It should be more like, in general, maybe that pain should be fixed even in general, right? Like not necessarily as a scale down thing, right? So
Uh-huh.
I mean, without getting into specifics, it's kind of hard to talk about because I'm just kind of
It is. It actually runs
talking
into
really like
different
vaguely.
problems, right? If you turn left or if you
Yeah,
turn right, or if the number goes up or the numbers go down. For instance, so if the number goes down, it's like, well, everything's PVE. If the number goes up, well, now war pacing is an issue because things are just way out of control and the front line just swings all the time. What even is like a good sweet spot, if that even exists, right? So it's tricky. I think everyone will come at it differently from how they play. So logistics people are going to be like, yeah, can we like form a union at this point and like get paid for what we for what we do, or just maybe they can form a union to get more commands. I don't know, but in terms, I think it's going to have to get issue by issue, and I hope the audience kind of brings some of that up tonight. So we will see. If you're hearing this now, make sure you maybe you can follow up on that because I do want to move on. So yeah. Yeah, moving on here to the next question, asymmetry. So we're really hitting the big ones here because it's the lead up to 1.0. It's the mad dash to the middle of the year. But can some sort of balance be struck in the realm of asymmetry? Maybe because I've heard all sorts of suggestions. For instance, like maybe a baseline set of vehicles, and then you can have some tweaked variants, or maybe I don't know why I wrote down like, yeah, like a baseline set of bayonets, and then like the colonials and the wardens can unlock different bayonets. That's a really I don't know. I think I wrote that like a week ago, but just something baseline, or then give maybe the players, or to give the different factions something unique for them. Because the balancing act, and I've heard, oh my goodness, I forgot their name, but I've heard someone bring up that even just the perception of imbalance can affect how people play the game so much. Just the presence of saying that there is asymmetry can really affect how people play the game and consume the game, I should say. So yeah, getting back to a concrete question, where do you feel like asymmetry is right now? Are you still full steam ahead on full steam on head on? Yeah, maybe there just isn't enough right now. There aren't enough variants, and we'll really get on it once so and so update comes around. Or maybe is it time for tweaks?
yeah. So I don't think we're fully committed to asymmetry, so we're not gonna roll back to like symmetrical factions. In fact, we're gonna go in the opposite direction. It's kind of the train's moving now, and we just kind of got to place down the tracks in front of it. So I feel like we're gonna definitely continue to evolve it, and I think what Max talked about over and over again on some previous streams is generally how we're hoping that it'll be addressed through times, which is to give both sides enough options where it doesn't feel like things are missing, right? Because another thing is like I saw the community census that was put out there by Leo. So for those of you who don't know, this was a completely community-run census. We had no hand in it. We don't know anything about it. We just read the results, just the same as you guys, right? So in that census, I think that there was sort of a question about asymmetry, and majority of the people were in the category of I like asymmetry. I just feel like maybe you guys can be doing a better job, right, at implementing it. So maybe they had an issue with the implementation, but they preferred asymmetry over symmetry, right? And there was a small group that was like, "Oh, you guys are doing a perfect job." But
Very small group, maybe. I don't know. Well, the numbers don't lie. I don't know the numbers. I don't have the data in front of me.
Well, I mean, you should go look at the census, right?
Yeah,
but
I need to look at that again.
The thing is, like, most people like it conceptually, but they just kind of take issue with how we're doing it, right? So I think we will continue to evolve it. We're gonna our goal right now is really to fill in these gaps where one side is like, hey, why do we just completely not have this type of thing, right? And that's our
like bayonets. I think people bring up bayonets a lot because it's like, no, it's nothing but grenade launchers, and I would really like the bayonet charge. So it's like that's more of a tech tree thing where people have to choose between that.
Yeah, it's more of a tech tree thing. So I think just talking about the asymmetry specifically, I think that our first priority right now, there's a lot of work to be done, but the first real priority is making sure that we're filling in some of those gaps. But this is like, I keep saying this over and over again. It's a continuum, right? And I really want to encourage people to not think of things like absolutes, right? Like at this point, this will be fixed. It's never good. We're just going to be, again, it's going to be like a year, 2 years, like 3 years. It's going to be the same, right? Like we're going to keep working on it. Some people are going to get, have played too much Foxhole. They're not going to play anymore. That's fine. Maybe they'll come back or maybe they won't, right? And it's just staying, we're going to keep working on it. We're going to be here. And, that's kind of really all I have to say, right?
I promise I did not show Mark any of these questions because you went right into my next thing, actually. And it's actually an exchange from KFC on the Foxhole official Discord from January 19th. Someone asked, is it possible to find casualty stats for past wars? By the way, that's on foxholestats.com. I don't think it goes all the way back to War 1, but you can get casualty stats from foxholestats.com. Love that website. Thank you, Hayden, as always. To which Max replied, I'm pretty sure we have a script for that somewhere if it still works. White Falcon then said, stated, that would mean the wars are connected to each other, which doesn't seem to be the case. And then Max said here, so this is the juicy part here, no, that's not the goal. The goal is to get the wars to feel unique. We don't honestly expect players to play in every war sequentially. Our hope is that a player buys Foxhole, enjoys playing a war that lasts a few weeks or months, wins or loses, then plays something else. In a few months, a few updates go by, and it's like a whole new game. That same player comes back, plays a new war, and it repeats ad infinitum, I should read better, across as many players as we can. So obviously Max is saying this. So I'm pretty safe to say you would agree, and if maybe you want to expand on that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like, we can't tell players. I wish we could, but we can't tell players how to play the game. We can't really tell players, to do this or that. But I think what Max was trying to get at there was less about, hey, this is how you should play the game, and if you're not playing it this way, you're doing it wrong. I don't think he meant that. I think what I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to set this expectation that we're not advertising ourselves as like, Foxhole is going to, take over your life like World of Warcraft, and there's going to be like, this crazy live service thing. You're always going to be engaged all the time for the next 3 years, and you're never going to be bored. I think he's just trying to set the
Yeah, you're being jovial about it, but that actually is important to distinguish because there are games absolutely like World of Warcraft or EVE Online or a whole bunch of other MMOs where you can dump and like the devs are like, yeah, sure, go for it. These features are here for you to take over your life. But so then you're saying that the Foxhole is not meant to do that. But
to be super clear, because I don't want to be misinterpreted on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
we'd love you to play Foxhole all the time. I
Right.
want that, right? Like and I think Max wants that. Everyone in the dev team here and now, I wish that you guys would be playing Foxhole all the time,
Of
right?
course.
But what we're trying to communicate to you is like we're not bound by some sort of microtransaction type thing where we have to give you like a daily quest where we're expecting you to come back, and if you don't, then we're worried because like our player numbers are going down, and then that means that business is going down. Like our business is not predicated on that, which is one of our core tenets. That's why we do it, right? Because we don't want to be forced to be like, okay, wait a minute, like, players not playing the game anymore. Let's try to fish them back in with microtransactions and daily quests, and if you log in today, you get the special skin or something. Like, that's fine for those other games, and they have different requirements. They have huge teams. They have 100 people team, but we put ourselves in the position that we're in right now, so we don't have to be like that, right? So we can be a bit more like the old school, where you buy something like Command and Conquer, you play Command and Conquer because it's fun, and if you really like the game, you're going to be playing it for years, right? And then maybe they come out with like an expansion pack or something, and you buy that. But it's not this like treadmill
Yeah.
type
I
of thing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I actually wasn't even thinking about it from like a
Oh,
a
okay.
business standpoint.
Sorry,
I mean, no, that's how you answered the question, and that's actually good to know. But
Right.
I guess I'm also coming at it that's the beauty of it. There's a lot of ways you can approach this. I guess one way I'm thinking about it is how, like, for instance, I always come back to this, how trenches are in Foxhole, and Foxhole is a persistent world game. But yet, trenches operate way differently than they do in Foxhole than in real life, because people like for instance World War One and World War Two even people lived in those trenches day and night and was defending it 24/7. Whereas in Foxhole, it's kind of more of a fleeting thing or something that is to be used as a backup or just as an auxiliary thing. Well, I guess dependent, unless it's the pits where that really is just hell. But I just extrapolate that as an example because, yeah, just overall on the gameplay, it's interesting how that appears to be part of the design approach for you guys when it comes to when it comes to designing the game. Because if you're not supposed to play the war sequentially, even though you absolutely can, well, I guess that is how Max was saying it. But uh, 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 looking at so I'm like defeating my own arguments as I'm coming up with them. But let me
No. I think if I were to add just one more thing, right?
sure.
I think a lot of times, like, when Max talks about these topics, because he used to be like when he wasn't on the dev team, he was a player, right? And I think that he's trying to come at it from the perspective of a player, in a sense, like he doesn't want to be he doesn't want to be lying to people, right? Like that's the thing that Max. That's a good thing that but I feel like sometimes maybe it's things get lost in translation, and it sounds like, hey, he's telling us not to play the game, but
Oh
that's
yeah,
not
no,
true, right?
I don't think anyone
Yeah,
was
yeah,
really
he's.
interpreting. I mean,
Oh,
they
okay,
probably
yeah,
did, but just from
yeah.
a gameplay perspective, right? So then, in terms of how people fight at the front line, there you go. Jesus, that's what I was trying to say. In terms of how people fight at the front line, and in terms of the grind of having to continuously throw themselves at the line, or maybe coming back and trying to do something dynamic with it, maybe trying to do an operation or whatnot. I think it's part of why it's so difficult for those things to happen is because, yeah, maybe that is just how the game is designed at this point, where, yeah, you're just not supposed to play the game every time. Because I think a lot of players do treat Foxhole like a play every day MMO, play every hour MMO, like Eve, where you're supposed to babysit a space station or like babysit these, treaties or whatever, and then hope to God the enemy fleet doesn't come out of nowhere. But I,
And that's valid. I mean,
it
that's
so
a
yeah, okay.
valid way. It's absolutely a valid way to play, and like again, I really feel like that is one of the amazing luxuries we feel as a dev team, right? Is that we we don't have to like we're not under these weird stresses. We just basically, make the game as fun as we can. Obviously people have issues with a certain part of the game, but at least the issues that we're contending with, at least the issues that we may be at odd ends with, right? With certain players or players not happy about something. At least what's amazing is that it's always about the gameplay, right? And it's not about like, oh, I see what the devs are doing. They're trying to do this like this like fear of missing out thing, right?
Well, that's a huge part of that plays right into it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, like we at the end of the day, it's up to the players. It's like asking a question of, again, going back to the old school. It's like, how are you expected to play a game like Command and Conquer? Are you gonna? I remember when I played it before a long time ago. I hate always going back to these old school examples. Makes me feel old, but it's like, I played the campaign like 6 times or something, right? And then I played the multiplayer like, well, a whole bunch, but it wasn't because of anything. It was just because I enjoyed the game, and I hope that the type of games that we make are like that. It's like if someone wants to just come in and sort of see what's new in the update and play in a single war, that's valid. If somebody wants to play 3-4 wars in a row, that's also valid. I don't think we have any desire either way to tell people how to play. Like it's up to them, right?
It's up to them, but I think a lot of them, me included, sometimes will will sit there. So in the chat, the Shax just said, "I'm AFK waiting for a fob to have AI right now." So that's sometimes people do play it like that, and I can sadly or
great.
happily relate. Yeah.
Which is exciting. I don't know. That's really exciting to me.
Yeah. I bring up this thing, and I'll leave it on the screen. This comment from Max, which is it's a very enlightening comment. I'm really glad he wrote it down. Again, some of these questions, I try to bring them up, but please, if you want to come at it from a different approach, please do so. Ask my question again, but come at it from a different angle. Sometimes I ask questions, sometimes I don't. So feel free to help me finish the job here. But in any case, we'll get to our callers starting right now. So going over some.
Sorry, do you mind if I? Sorry, do you mind if I say something first?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we're gonna be announcing it tomorrow, but since we're here, I figured it would be an exciting thing.
Oh.
We're actually going to be the dev stream is coming back on February 2nd, and that's where we're going to be doing the full review of the winter update, which is our 2 times a year big update. If you've been around here long enough,
sure,
it's going to be a pretty meaty update. So just wanted to plug that here.
This is you just revealed the reveal.
Reveal the reveal. Maybe this should be like a trailer for the trailer.
There you go.
That'd be great.
Now I'm sure a lot of people are going to say, "Can you just actually put it in the updates channel for once?" Because people started DMing me like, "Hey, is there a dev stream today?" I don't know. I'm not a dev. You think I'm that in tune with what the devs do? I'm sure you got a lot of DMs about that. So, in any case, just to go over a few things for call queue procedure. There you go. Yes, just write in the call queue channel on Discord, link below the stream. Just click on the picture there that says Discord, and you'll get a link to the server. Just type in your status if you are with a group or you're not with a group, and by group I mean clan or regiment, aka any one of those things, or say you're unaffiliated if not, and just let us know. And then for the regimental rules, one call with more than one person per show for a whole regiment. And if you're a part of that call, you can't be part of other calls. And then individuals can call in if they want from a regiment, but we'll add in some people in between just to break it up a bit, because we don't want someone hijacking a whole night. In any case, it's all written in the call queue channel. You can start there. So regardless, let us get to the Swords of Morrow's Nocturne. Welcome back, Nocturne, to Zero Dark Presscorps. How are you?
I'm always glad to be back, and I'm doing pretty well today. How are you?
Doing well.
So my question is more on the armored side of combat. and that is more specifically, I think it can be improved in such a way that the lowering of the percentage for how tanks are disabled is a good step to it. But I also think that perhaps another addition could be an addition to knocking out of subsystems. So, for example, you have the turret ring being disabled, so you can't really turn the turret anymore. What about, however, let's say you were to take a heavy machine gun to a tank, alright, so it's not going to be able to do anything. But if you were to aim at the barrel of the tank, that could knock out the barrel, thus severely impacting its accuracy.
Wasn't there an ability in Company of Heroes where you could like kite a tank? I think you know what I'm talking about. I don't know if we're talking about the same thing, but like I think it was the British faction. The British, they could use a Bren gun to shoot at a tank and it would like blind it temporarily. I guess that's different.
Yeah, it's sort of different, yeah.
But just in
Kind of
terms
the
of
same.
subsystems, like what are the subsystems right now? Well, let's get it for the record. There's tracks, there's fuel. You can knock out like a fuel leak, turret turning, and engine. And well, I guess that's just every vehicle. I think that's all of them right now. Am I missing anything else?
No, that's correct. The engine is not really a subsystem.
Right.
It's more generally disabling, right?
But yeah, no, I like that idea. So turret disable altogether. So just taking out the gun, as frustrating as that would be. What else?
That's more of like, if you get that lucky shot, that's kind of like a really...
That would have to
It's
be
not-
incredibly rare. Because I
Yeah.
can imagine, because at least with a turret turning, we can switch to, okay, now we're stuck in place, but I can turn the vehicle, and there's kind of a tactical
exactly.
thing there. I don't know. I don't know, because like a turret being disabled, which does happen like in real life, so there's a, that's part of it. But I don't know. I feel like that would be more frustrating than cool.
So I guess my question: it sounds like you want more complexity out of the subsystem system.
Yeah, basically.
Just more.
Yeah, it's a good like first step in the water, but it could be a bit deeper, not too complex, but just a bit more to it.
Ooh, what if like if you get hit, I don't know where, but if you got hit, um, maybe your communications would get disabled, so then now you can't use proximity chat while you're in the tank.
That's
That
it.
would be kind of...
Yeah, it's what's interesting is in when you're thinking about the game, it's always exciting talking about things like this, making it more real or like adding more features like that. And we just had this conversation today among the team where it came up where it was like, when is it too complicated and it becomes not fun, right? And it becomes more of just kind of like realism for the sake of realism. So I'm actually interested in hearing from you guys how you feel about that. Like, where's your own personal threshold of, hey, well, at the end of the day, it's video game, which is the argument we often hear. Where's that threshold for you guys?
For me, I guess that would be like a sort of like there is a fun aspect to it, yeah, but I guess like the balance of it being too much and actually still fun would be right on the borderline of, here is this semi-realistic ability that you can sort of do, like knocking out the various parts of a tank, but at the same time it's not like, oh, you've destroyed the barrel of the gun, time to bring it back to the garage. I guess you can kind of call it like the current problem with the prototypes, because yeah, you can bring a prototype out to a field, but if like something goes wrong and you like get tracked, or they're actually mainly just getting tracked, it's a long haul back to the garage, which I guess for terms of the costs, it's worth it sometimes.
Would that be cool, or would that be? Oh, that's the question, right? Would it be cool? Would it be fun? Or would it just be annoying? That should be. Is that the check mark? Is that the checklist you have on your whiteboard, Mark? When looking at everything.
Well, that's basically the question that was posed, right? It's like, and this question is constantly posed, right? Like at some point, is it, you know, is it like too annoying? Like you know, if you take this to the furthest extreme, right? If you took away fast travel in the game, it would be like, well, that's incredibly realistic, and then the sense of scale would be awesome, right? But it's like, would that probably be annoying, right? But you know, it's hard to say because games break convention all the time. Like someone might make a version of Foxhole where it's like there is no fast travel, and maybe everyone will be suddenly would be like, wait a minute, we always thought this would be super annoying, but it turns out it's really exciting, right? So it's really, um, you know, it's hard to, for example, a game like PUBG, nobody knew that would work a few years before that, right? People be like, what? You die and then you're gone for like the rest of the match. You know, it's like permadeath, and people probably would have thought that was a really bad idea, and then it came out, and it's like, wait a minute, this actually works quite well, right? So,
Yeah. I guess it's just like the level of how, like, since no one's tested kind of or put like their feet in the water for this type of game, no one knows exactly how people are going to react to how things turn out.
You can say that for every other feature. Do you have any other ideas along with that one you posed? Because we could go on with this for a bit. We'll give it maybe a couple.
I sort of have like this other idea of how what was it exactly? You can, so like there's the basic system of, you know, the prototyping, which is good so far, but again, if you bring it out into the field, it's kind of like, well, now that prototype's been damaged, you bring it back to the base and then, or the garage rather, repair it back and forth, back and forth. What if that prototype survives long enough so that the full vehicle is checked, that prototype becomes a vet?
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. I actually really want to, now that all the kind of one, let me put it this way, one area of the game that we have not explored yet, right? Because we spent so much time in kind of hammering home the idea to everyone that everything is shared in the game, right? I think that like there could be some room on top of the core of everything shared and you work for your team. I think there is room to explore things like, hey, a tank becoming kind of like I don't know how to put it without misleading people, but being able to progress a tank or that's the wrong word because people start thinking, oh, is it just gonna be like some stats on the tank or something, and then you know it's like an RPG. No, that's not what I mean. But it's more like, let me put it this way: it'd be really cool if a tank can turn into like a tank in Fury the movie, where it's sort of this like it's sort of like a veteran tank, and maybe they like spray painted it or something, and it's sort of like what would even be cooler. You know, this is my mind going back into like the exploratory side of things is if that tank can actually persist through wars or something, right? And not in the way of like, you know, oh, at the beginning of the next war, I'm going to have a tank, right?
But, I mean, that would be cool, as broken as that would be.
I mean, it would be cool, but it's like more to the extent of like, hey, like maybe I can reclaim it back later or something, and then you know it could just be like a role playing thing, or maybe it can be more, right? I think now that we sort of have established that Foxhole is not the kind of game where you have like a hero tank and this is your hero tank. You know, it's not like a world of tanks. Now, you know, I think it's safe to think about those type of ideas, right? And how that might work, right?
People grow close attachments to their vehicles, particularly the bigger they are, and of course the higher resources they consume. There was one where it's like, can we name our tanks? And I thought that's an awesome idea because that's, I mean, like, of course people do name them, but name them like they can type the name onto the tank. And aside from the obvious problem that people would just choose the worst possible names, the most immature and horrible things for it, aside from that, it would be incredibly cool. I suggested, because we're just shooting suggestions now, but I suggested, you know, you can name a tank, but you can do like 3-column preset entries. So
exactly.
Yeah, so like one would be like type of metal, like copper or like iron or whatever, and then like a number, and then like some sort of adjective, or and then a noun. So that you can choose from a very, very, very diverse list and
I mean,
come
there's
up
a
with a
lot
cool name.
of there's a lot of ways you could do that, and I think that like there always is that thing hanging over us of like people are going to abuse it and they're going to use these horrible words, but I feel like um, I've kind of come to the point where it's like I don't want that to really stop us, right? And there's a lot of ways you can attack that. You can have like a vetted list, right? Maybe like the community can submit pre-verified words or something like that, and then there's just like a pool of them. So if a clan wants to submit something cool that's related to their clan, we'll just take a look at it and be like, hey, this is fine. Let's add this into the list.
I think PlanetSide did that with their clan or their outfit emblems. So if an outfit, they could literally just submit art for their outfit, and then it was just they can wear that as a patch on their uniform.
What would be awesome is if one day, and I'm not talking here about planned things.
Sure.
I'm taking the role of an excited player, right? Mm-hmm. But it'll be awesome if like your clan, if you can put your clan emblem onto a tank or something, right? I think that would be super. I mean, Foxhole is like has so much of the success of the game, and so much of what we have to be thankful for is because of the clans, right? And I think that we're at the point where I would love to start giving more things for the clans to be able to use in the game, right? I think
like an actual clan system.
I think that'd be cool.
Actually, like a listing. But yeah, Nocturne, did you have anything? I know we veered way off course there, but we were just kind of running with the ball.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right. No worries. It's all good.
Yeah, did you have anything else to close out?
No, that was pretty much everything that I had in my brain. I'm still cooking up more ideas to present.
Okay, well, yeah, as always, write them down. Hey, Mark, can we get like a open Reddit thread? Of which half of the replies will just be like vision memes, but like, can we get like a Reddit thread where it's like, what are some cool subsystem ideas that you could come up with for a tank, maybe, or like not tank, but vehicles, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. He will consider it.
All right, that's all one can really ask for.
Yeah. All right. Hey,
thank you for having me,
Nocturne. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Coming up next is the 82 Gays Zackreaver calling out on his own. Zach, welcome back.
Hey, do you hear me all right? My microphone recently died.
Yes, we got you.
All right. So how's it going, Mark?
It's good, thanks.
All right. I wanted to talk about one thing very briefly. You've heard me come up here before. I usually talk about tech-related things. I just want to ask you a question on it, though. A lot of people have been talking about just getting the tech system changed. Have you guys considered any updates planned for the tech system? Like maybe like everyone wants to have automated tech, or at least a tech timer, so that we don't have to live in the salvage fields. Is there anything planned for that?
Not for the next month or two, no. But we're not closing the door on that sort of thing. And I know this has been, you've been coming on here every time, you've been asking the same question, you've kind of been hearing the same answer. But I'm just, to be kind of honest about our schedule, it's probably not going to be in the next month or two. But just keep giving us the feedback, and there's we're not done with it. So change can come, and you look at examples of things in the past that maybe it took a bit longer than it should have for us to change certain things. Eventually, if we hear enough about it, and things can happen, right? So yeah, I wish I had a more concrete answer, man. I really wish I do, because I know you ask this every time. But
no, it's no big deal at all. I don't mind. I know that this is not an instantaneous thing. I just know that things felt a lot better before Arms Race, when we didn't have to grind tech parts. Like once you release that update, it's like, hey, you don't have to get research parts anymore. I'm like, yes! It was so great to not have to fight over what tech would unlock next. And then this new system kind of brought it back. I'm like, ooh, can we go back?
So I hear you. Like, I do have a question actually. Have you
Sure thing.
felt moments in the war where the enemy has been significantly out-teched your faction?
Several
felt-
times.
Okay.
Like, that has been a constant feeling. Like, I'll just check with binos and see, like, oh, they have field hospitals, or oh, they have howitzers, or oh, look, I look on the map and they have garrison houses. It's a miserable feeling to see that. And
Gotcha.
there's actually been times where the other side has unlocked sledgehammers, and there's a little bit of excitement because then we go and find a undefended resource field and steal their sledgehammers. But it just sort of feels like a situation that I don't like having to race. I would rather just go to the front line and fight, or build a base, or harvest resources to prepare for an op, and not have to worry about, yeah, if I'm on the front line, I don't want to worry about falling behind on tech. I would rather that sort of thing just kind of happens over time. And that's my opinion on it, because it doesn't feel good to know that you could be falling behind if you're not doing this particular thing.
So it's like it's just for the sake of it. The whole tech system is just kind of for the sake of it. I wonder. That does bring up a good point, because the intention, or at least what I believe to be the intention of the tech system, of just tech in general, just the whole concept of the damn thing, of the tree, is that it's supposed to provide more interesting choices, certainly a more unique outcome, but also even just a player agency in choosing, having a say in what direction their faction goes in. But I wonder if, particularly by now, one, it's just too far removed from everyone, because it's so many people over such a long period of time influencing it. I do wonder if it just feels so removed, it defeats the purpose, because you don't feel that anymore. And then two, it becomes a bigger burden than it's worth. Are those statements you would agree with, Zach?
Yeah, but funny enough, when you first mentioned the new tech system, I was excited because I thought it was going to be a system that was still timered, but we voted on it. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. Now we get to, like, vote on something that will unlock automatically. It's just the fact that it's not automatic that made it more miserable.
Yeah, if I'm understanding from our previous conversations, I think Zackreaver's main issue with it is not. It sounds like, from what I recall, he's fine with for the most part, with having to get the parts to make the prototype kit, and he likes the idea that you're voting, but he doesn't like the grind, the feeling like he has to grind to keep up with the other side, because it's an endless. From what I recall, you use the words like it just seems like an endless task, right?
Yeah, I would never feel like I have an endpoint. I'm always going.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this last time, and it's with the prototype, the, the the trivial solution of, hey, just sort of make it on a timer, but keep everything else the same. There was a challenge to that, which is that a lot of people would hoard their parts then if they knew that it was just going to be on a timer, and they would save it until they had something like tanks and expend it. Now, I'm not saying there aren't other solutions, but that specific sort of low-hanging fruit solution would be challenging because of that. But there could be other ways, right? For sure.
I mean, maybe, but you never know. Some people might still want to use something earlier on. Because, sure, it's not hard to get enough iron to prototype 1 or 2 vehicles, but maybe you might want to get an early armored car or an early APC.
I'm zooming and I'm potentially hijacking your call. I'm so sorry, but I just can't shake the thought. Let's think about it fundamentally, right? What is the purpose of having things deploy or like things arrive on the field at over a period of time? What is the point of that? And I have answers in my head, but let's just approach it from there first, I guess.
Can I just say one thing that could answer that?
Yeah.
I want to build my base without it being blown up by a guy with a satchel on the first day of the war.
Okay. But what if you had things at the same time as that guy had a satchel to also stop that guy from satcheling? Like, is that a problem of tech, or is that a problem of something else?
Well,
I mean, I would.
Sorry, I'll let you answer it first.
All right. I wouldn't mind having an early harvester or an excavator or something that could help me build faster as well, but I'm okay with the game having like a progression from one part to another.
Okay.
It's really a matter on how Markfoot and his team wants to set up the game.
Yeah, Mark.
To answer that question with a question is why would you why in StarCraft do you not just have all your units at the beginning? It's an interesting fundamental question, right?
As cool as that would be, and there are mods that allow you to do that. I don't know, because I'm shooting from the hip, but like, what if this is so dumb? What if everything was unlocked at the same time, except maybe rockets, and I don't know. Sure, but or maybe even rockets. What if everything was unlocked at the same time at the beginning, but things were such at an exponential cost that you wouldn't see them until way later, guaranteed. But then as they do get built, or like as over time, maybe the cost comes down. So I don't know. Battle tanks, yeah, theoretically they're available at the beginning of the war, and you can gun it, but it costs literally 1 million RMAT, or I don't know, just pulling that out of my head. But then as the war goes on, so like we're in week 4 IRL of the war, okay, now battle tanks are back to the usual amount, and you'll see them more. I don't know. I'm just trying to radically come up with a different aspect here.
How about instead, Mark, could we potentially have one war where the tech tree is just fully unlocked, just one?
I've seen this too. It's like, can we just see what happens?
One interesting, I don't think anytime soon, but
sure.
Like one interesting thing that was brought up now, it's related to an idea we had a long time ago. This idea has been like thrown out, so it's not something that we're doing. But the idea that you could, because we thought if it was controlled by cost, right, then it would be the players deciding. It wouldn't be us when something gets unlocked, right? So, as you're saying, if it could,
and you don't want that in this case, right?
Well, no, I'm not saying we want it or we don't. It's okay. It's just funny that we had that idea as well. I think it was an early version of how mass production could work and how the tech system would work. I think the idea was that you could, as the war goes on and you progress through the tech tree helps you become more efficient at producing things. But from the first day, if some clan wants to spend tons of hours grinding out like 3,000 RMATs to make a battle tank to try to steamroll the map, nothing's stopping them. But as the war goes on, that gets cheaper and cheaper by not researching the tech, but researching the production for it, right? We threw that idea out, but it's interesting that you're arriving at that same kind of idea that we had thought of previously. And I think a part of the tech system that we have now was to try to allow players to be able to get some of that sooner by using a prototype kit. And granted, prototype kit, I know a lot of people kind of feel right now that it's prototypes are too useless. They're not worth it. I think there's a valid argument there. But maybe we can make the prototypes more useful. Maybe we can, even in the future, who knows? Maybe there's another way you can make a tank, right? Maybe it's not just from the tech. It's possible.
Yeah. Right? My rebuttal to what if 82DK, for instance, everyone just comes together and says, hey, let's hyper focus our effort onto making a battle tank and arrive it at like the second day of the war, because we just took over all, friendly of course, but we really hit the materials hard. We grinded, we did it all night, we hung out, we had fun, and then we got the battle tank. I think people would fear, and it's always the first thing that comes across people's mind, is that that would just steamroll, incredibly so. But I don't know. I mean, on the one hand, there's something kind of cool about that, about a legendary battle tank that arrived at the second day of the war, just steamrolling everything, or maybe even just a 1v1 fight of a colonial one too, matching it. But then I also think, well, wouldn't it? I don't know, because like you put in all that effort. At the end of the day, it's still a battle tank, right? And there's still a lot of ways to skin a battle tank. Even just from basic people trying to rush it with HEs. I've seen
bombs are available from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I don't think it'd be that big of a threat as you think it is. Now, I do think maybe there would be some, like maybe. Well, no, because I'm thinking, yeah, maybe I think the cost. Mark, I honestly think, without any concrete evidence to back this up, I thoroughly do think that the price would kind of regulate it, not to be free market about Cronus Winter and his socialism in Foxhole thing cries in the distance. But go ahead. Yeah.
No, there's a lot of ways. There's a lot of ways you can approach it, right? Like the system like that. It'd be interesting to see how that will work. Maybe in like another game, or maybe at some point we could take some aspect of that and incorporate it into Foxhole. But yeah, I mean, there's like that free market approach.
I hate that we're calling it that. The free market approach to Foxhole. Yeah. I did call it that first, but I hate it.
There are two other things I wanted to talk about.
Yes, I'm sorry, Zach. I totally hijacked the call. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's fine, because one of them you actually did mention in your opening talk with Mark about population imbalance and how it actually affects the game. Now, I'm openly accepting that this game will never have a perfect balance of population.
It's just not possible.
There's going to be one side that just has more people than the other at certain times of the day. I accept that. But Arms Race actually changed something about the game that made the situation worse, and it's tied to provisional AI. I mentioned my issue with provisional AI before, but before Arms Race, you could build a base, then bring upgrade parts to it to turn on the AI, and the AI's existence was so if you were just one guy with a base that you built, you could hold off against 6 or 8 guys, because they would have to deal with your defenses, and you just have to deal with them. And you can approach them from any angle. And that was how I would always handle situations when I was outnumbered, and it felt great.
To kind of ask you, though, are we sure that you could do that before with the efficiency system?
Oh, definitely.
He could what?
At the wrong point in time, and efficiency was very low. It wouldn't be a few parts. It wouldn't be a few upgrade parts. It would be like an order of magnitudes more, right?
I mean, yeah. The efficiency system wasn't perfect, but what I would usually do is I would be kind of in the back where the territory would turn friendly, and it would have a low cap of 0.75, and I would just cut off certain areas that were well-known partisan routes.
Oh, gotcha. So you're talking about friendly territory, because
mostly, but also just the fact that when you want to have AI to prevent those spots where one partisan gets into a foxhole and shoots a truck, getting the AI there is an extreme hassle, because it's hard to get 10 people to just keep the AI on, and the AI will shut off unless it's been there for 8 or so hours. And the new system actually encourages more spam, because you can build as many bases as you want in the back line, and you don't have to worry about efficiency tanking everything on the map. You just keep building until suddenly the map is just covered with defenses, and then if you're worried about garrison supplies, you just kept those bases really, really small. It's just a base or just a bunker base, and they're 10 or so bunker supplies, but all these defenses have to be made reactively. So the first day of the war for me is usually just going around and building 6 or 17 different bases, and then just waiting for G supplies to unlock so I can make sure they don't rot.
So you're saying you like all of this? You find that a positive?
I'm saying that before the system, I could just build a base when it's needed, give it AI, and it'll serve its purpose. But now, if things are going terribly and we're about to get invaded in a region, we need a base here, I'm probably not going to have the 10 people to keep the AI on, and the enemy's just going to steamroll in and take it out. The issue is...
you don't think that's fair? You don't think that should be able to happen?
I don't think it's fair that if we're not preemptively making a bases, anytime we make a new base, we need to have people to turn on the AI. But the main issue is when you're outnumbered, you don't have the people to turn on the AI. The AI is supposed to be there to cover for the fact that you don't have bodyguards watching over a town late at night.
Yeah, so I think, in friendly territory, you might be right. Like maybe before with efficiency, because with the friendly starter territory buff, you know, you you were able to grind out the upgrade parts there. But definitely in enemy territory, I believe it was worse because, again, if efficiency was low, which it often was, unless you were there when efficiency came back up, you wouldn't be able to do that. But one thing I would add is maybe we need to look at the friendly territory numbers, because if you're building a base, need you don't necessarily need players there. You can, as long as it's being supplied, as long as you're building AI defenses around there, you should be able to get that growth you need to get to the point where you have a small garrison, and then it'll be self-sustaining. You don't need any players there, right? So it's like, if you're taking issue with that balance of how long that process takes or how many supplies are needed, we could take a look at that balance. But just you know, I think
I think
if the desire is, okay, I can just place down a fob and instantly have AI there, that's kind of another story, and maybe there's more to talk about. I don't know, right? So I guess maybe you should clarify. Like, is it that you want the capability of being able to say, hey, I can just put down this fob here and have AI defenses instantly? Like, is that sort of what you want?
a mixture of that, but let me mostly point out where the big issue comes in. I sent you actually a picture in a private message a while back to kind of explain it, but
Just to Mark?
to iterate, what's up?
Should I have it too or no?
Yeah, just to mark. This was a while back,
Oh, okay.
but I could send it to you though. But just to describe what was on the picture, it was first coin. It was Warden owned, but it was recently captured. There was a big frontliner or whatever there, a big capture, and then a few hours later, like it had died down. There was no action there. No side was doing anything. One colonial went over there with a barge and a CV, blew up the town hall, captured it, and then built a watchtower right next to it. All because there was no AI there because of the provisional AI being down. And that just feels silly in this kind of game. Because there was a big effort to take the town back, and then it was just taken back by one person because they knew that the AI would shut off.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's when there's a front line and you successfully win the front line, but now they don't want to go for the next area there. So like the fight's over, there's no action, so they leave. And because of how provisional AI works, if there's no one there, the AI shuts off. So now the spawn point, the victory point, or the whatever you're trying to capture, has nothing protecting it. So anybody could just drive a CV up to it as long as nobody's watching the map, blow it up and capture it. And it's super silly, and that's my biggest problem with the current game, that when you build these bases, you have to account that you're not going to have AI to protect them from those singular or groups of people that are just going to take advantage of the AI being down. And as a player, I have nothing to stop that. I'm by myself. I can't turn on the AI in any way, shape, or form. I have to call like 9 other people to come and set their spawn here, and then they have to sit here for how long? The facilities don't tell me when they're going to become permanent. There's no tool that tells me, hey, don't worry, just have to keep this under watch for another 6 hours, or we need this resource to keep the AI on. If there was something I could pay to keep the AI on, and it wasn't cheap, I wouldn't care. I just want something to keep the AI going so that situation doesn't happen. Because first coin got captured by one guy with a CV, because nobody was looking.
All right, so first thing I'll ask, and we do have to close out on this soon, but Mark, how long do you think people should be expected to guard something that isn't, but there's nothing going on there, if at all?
Yeah, so
Design question for you.
Right. So I don't think anyone should have to sit there. I think if someone literally has to sit there and guard it, then that's probably not something that needs to be rectified, right? And I think it's important, though. I hear the pain that you're describing, and I think that there's work to be done there. I think though that it's important to understand sort of the lineage of this, right? It's before there was an opposite problem, and a lot of frustration would be something like, hey, there was a night swing, and overnight just a small group of people not only took over a bunch of towns, but they have AI defenses there in 2 seconds, and now we're not able to. It's we heard things back then like, hey, it's not fair. With so little effort, they're able to just get AI like everywhere, and we can't do a counterattack. It's just kind of like extremely demoralizing, right? So it's so went from that to efficiency, and a lot of people hated efficiency, and I agreed with a lot of the complaints about it. I thought in retrospect it was not a great system. Maybe it was kind of a stand-in solution, and then we have the base upgrade system now, and it's not perfect. There's pros and cons like any of these other hard to solve problems in the game, um, and you're highlighting those problems. So obviously you're feeling some stress from it. So we should take a look at that. I do think that if there is something I would like to see is if you are kind of chipping away at the back on some sort of base, I do think it'd be nice if you could get a bit more control over your upgrades. But yeah, in terms of I feel like some of this is also tied into like it's complex because some of this is also tied into, okay, how dense are the front lines, and I think the density problem has been reduced uh, um, because of what we talked about at the very beginning, which is like, okay, uh, we don't have to open every region because each region can scale more, right? And because we don't have to have so many regions open, there's less of a density problem. And if there's less of a density problem, maybe these sorts of these problems I'm citing from the past, right? Maybe they're not problems anymore, right? Maybe we don't. Maybe we can loosen up on some of these things, and you know, maybe it's like we loosen up on this one thing, and it turns out that the game is stable, right? But on the other hand, you can loosen up on these things, and it's like, okay, now you're back to you've gone in a circle. You have these old problems, and now you have to put the player base through all the stress again. We have to reintroduce something like efficiency.
I think one thing that could help the stress, though, is if we just knew how long it took to get small garrisons. Because at least before, we saw how many upgrade parts we had to bring. It's like, if the efficiency was 0.75 or 0.5, we knew we just had to bring that many upgrade parts. But with this system, we have a bar, and we measure pixels. And we have no idea how far it's going up.
It's a timer without being a timer.
How long do we wait? Just tell us something. Give us a number. Give us a timer. That way we can be like, okay, guys, we just have to take shifts and guard it for 8 hours, and we're good. Like, once we're done with that, then there we go. We're done. If we at least had some information, we would lose our mind less.
I think taking shifts is probably not good. So maybe.
I mean, it's not good, but it kind of has to happen, right? At some point, someone actually does have to do the job of physically protecting something for some amount of time. I don't think that's completely off limits. Now, doing it for multiple.
No, I don't think it's off limit, and I feel like it is part of the game for sure. But I think any sort of strange, extended, like you got to sit here overnight type of stuff is kind of what I'm talking about. Right?
Sure.
Or an alternative to that, let us put in a resource. It doesn't have to be cheap. Make it expensive, like garrison supplies, to just keep the AI on. That way,
isn't that
I want to go to sleep.
You know what's interesting? There's people in EVE Online that actually stay up and guard things.
That's what I was talking about earlier, Mark. Zach, I'm so glad you finished my question from earlier. I'm glad you actually went somewhere with it. But Sorry, keep going, Mark. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
No, I was just it was just interesting because I was there were some avid Eve Online players on the team, and they were talking to me about, yeah, there's totally people that just sit there, and I don't understand the game that well because I'm not a player of Eve Online, but from what I gather, it sounded like there were people. Obviously, these are people doing the high level clan stuff, right?
I will say, I will say, not in Eve because that's a nightmare of a game. But I have done things where I forget even what context. I think it was PlanetSide where we were sitting around waiting for something to unlock her. I forget what we did. And it's like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, this is what it is. We're kind of doing the actual like military RP where we're sitting around and waiting for something to happen, but we're going to pass the time by talking to each other, which is, I don't know if that's an out necessarily, but it's kind of a design thing, but you can't actually rely on that. I don't know. That's an interesting way to approach it. I wish we had more time to talk about this. I have to cut this call off, Zach. I'm so sorry.
Can I say one line though?
One line, but not a question. Go ahead.
Can we get field hospitals day one, please?
I'm with that. All medical technology, unlock it immediately.
Even if it's just field hospitals, because I pick up a guy, I have no use for it at all. Absolutely none.
He has hurt us.
One use. I'm not going to travel all the way to the hospital in the back line. I'll just make shirts while I'm there. Let me make a field hospital day one. It won't hurt the game.
You heard it, and I think it'll be repeated ad nauseum. Zach, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, coming up next, Spots. Welcome back, Spots. How are you?
Oh.
That's all right. I totally just dragged you in.
Yep.
Yeah, so what do you got for us here?
So first things first, I really want to discuss about my opinion about tank battles.
Okay.
Because I do tank battles.
Mm-hmm. Hello?
Legitly, the current tank meta is drive up, shoot, and drive back. Mm-hmm. And the only vehicles that really change up the entire meta is mainly the Kroniscus. It's the only vehicle that doesn't fall into the
What
meta.
is the Kroniscus again?
The boosted tank.
Oh, okay.
The tank that is basically the equivalent of the R3.
Yeah. But
can actually do damage. And I was thinking, yeah, tank combat is just really just the basic idea of shoot, pull back, and there's like no strategies about what shells to load, where you should probably what shells to load. Should he load a certain type of shell? Should he pull back for repairs? Or should he keep fighting? This is like major issues in tank combat. There's like, it's like just the idea of just pull back, just like it's just one constant thing. But I really want to see is variety in tank combat. And I was thinking, and one of my ideas is different shell types, which we did have back in the day, but I want to change it up a bit and make it actually unique and actually give shells their like upsides and downsides. Like you might want to. So there'll be 3 shells: HE, armor piercing, just regular armor piercing, and armor piercing high explosive. HE shells are just going to be used mainly against infantry hordes and buildings. They're just your basic anti-building / anti-infantry shell. But this is where the come in. AP and APHE. AP shells will be solid shot, and they'll basically act like a big, like imagine firing a big rifle. Basically, it's gonna go in a straight line and it will penetrate anything it hits, and it just does regular damage to it. And it will cost less to produce, and it's gonna be cost less to produce because it doesn't need explosive materials in it. Maybe like a couple explosive materials for the primer, but not really any explosive materials needed.
Spots, I'm kind of losing you here. Can you get the fundamental differences between these types of shells?
The armor piercing. Sorry, it's just kind of my internet.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, armor piercing high explosive is going to be mainly used against heavier armored vehicles.
Okay.
AP shells will have better penetration rates and and it will cost less to produce.
So so there's a difference between AP and theoretically APHE is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So instead of like just one set of differences, there's like another set of differences that kind of crisscross with one another. Okay.
Yeah. where APHE does more damage to armored vehicles, but has a less penetration rate. And if the armored vehicle, let's say you shoot at an armored car, actually does less damage due to the fact that the fuse doesn't go off.
Mm-hmm. So then, what if?
Majority...
So there's more depth to it, and I've been wondering. Forgive me if you were going to bring this up because I've been thinking about it since you brought it up. There are multiple types of shells, or not. Well, there aren't, but there were. But I think one of the big problems was that you can't actually switch between them unless you're in a battle tank, right? So you kind of don't have anything much to you don't really have a choice there if you aren't kitted with it to begin with. Was there a way you were going to address that? Well, actually, okay, go ahead, finish
there's a way I want to address that, actually.
Yeah.
Internal ammo racks, where you click into the tank and you see the internal ammo racks.
So like how the battle tank technically kind of does that.
Yeah, but instead it's like, basically there's like, you have a limited amount of shells inside the tank. Like, say, the light tanks can carry maybe 60 shells at once. And then you can place the shells into certain part of the tanks.
Sure. Maybe lower the number, but okay.
Let's say you could place like 10 shells in your first rack, 20 shells in your secondary rack, and 30 shells in your last rack. 10 shells in the first rack will give you super fast reload rates. Like for the 10 shells you choose for the first rack. Then 20 shells in your next rack will be slightly slower reload rate.
I know you like to get really detailed in your suggestions, but I just getting to the heart of it. I thought you were going to bring up, because you were kind of you were like combining, and like it's kind of like a D&D alignment chart where it's like you have the vertical and then the horizontal, right? So I thought you were going to go into where it's like, okay, maybe we can account for not being able to switch between shells, but you can have like more of a spectrum. It's more of a spectrum as opposed to rock, paper, scissors.
Right.
Maybe. I don't know. That's a good. I don't know. Mark, have you ever thought about anything like that? Maybe somehow bringing back the multi-shell world, because I know you removed the advanced ammo factory, and I think you plan on keeping that out.
Yeah, we're not. There's no plans right now to bring back multi-ammo on tanks.
Right. Okay.
We'd rather different tanks fulfill different roles, as opposed to everyone driving around in sort of, we're actively trying to fight sort of the idea of like one tank that is the meta that can do everything, right? So, but I think the one thing that we are actively trying to do is to make the tank combat more interesting, which is why in the last update we added in the angle bonuses and the range bonuses, and we also decreased the threshold, so tanks don't get disabled as fast. And this last war had, I think, some of the craziest tank battles in a long time. Like I've seen so many videos on like massive tank battles, and it's still, I think things can be more interesting, but we saw some of them internally and we're like, hey, this is cool, maybe we succeeded. But then there's also some like, it's still not changed enough. It's
is there an example? Is there an example
of a video, or
just not a video, but just like of things that the team thought was they liked and didn't like?
Yeah, so I like the fact that in some of these cases, I was seeing some light tanks actually trying to close the distance and to get a shot at the flank of another tank, right? It wasn't common, but I did see this happen, which is sort of like, okay, well, at least a couple of people are trying this, right? The thing that we didn't, that was cited by the certain members of the team that they felt like it wasn't still there yet, is that the general survivability of the tanks was still survivability of the tank in the context of a tank battle, right? Like a tank versus tank battle, to be specific, is still not quite where it needs to be. Like it was cited that, hey, tank versus tank battles are a bit longer now, but maybe they should be even longer, right? So this was one person's thought, so it's not like we're definitely going to make changes there, but that was sort of there was some movement we feel on tank battles that happened in this last update, which was some of it was positive, but definitely still more work to be done there, right? So
Actually, about that, in my opinion, I want tank battles to be more about body first and getting the first shot off, because historically, this is made.
Mm-hmm. That's how they function. That's how they happen.
Yep, but I want to see more of that, like.
But isn't that something, Mark? Isn't that, Mark, something you said you were kind of not shying away from, but kind of like trying to turn away from?
Well, it's more. Well, traditionally a lot of tank battles. The depending on if you hit the tank at the front, in a lot of cases, obviously this is like depends on what tank and what point in time in history, right? There's just so many variables, but like sometimes you wouldn't even be able to really damage a tank at all if the tank was much heavier than your own tank and you were kind of hitting it at its thickest point in the armor, right? But I guess where some of this was coming from is that you spend a lot of time preparing for a tank battle, and if you see something like, hey, you got like 5 tanks on your side and they have 5-6 tanks on their side, and it's over in like 30 seconds or less, is that fun, right? Is it realistic? Going back to
I
the
can
question
agree
at
with
the
you.
start, right?
That's not fun.
All right, so it's kind of like that's where I think that complaint, that desire came from there, right? It's like, is it over before it began, right? I think it was more that, as opposed to like we want it to be like 5 minutes dragging on, or like that's not what we want. Like we want it to be high stakes still, but the question came up of is it over before it began? Does it feel like that still, right?
And that's something that you've been wanting to not so much outlaw completely, but maybe downplay. Or not, or the opposite.
Just trying to find where that sweet spot is, right? Of it feeling like it's still high stakes, and you got the first shot off. That mattered a lot, but it's not like man, it's just over in a blink of a second. We had 5 tanks coming this. We were expecting a huge epic tank battle, but you know what's cool? Like this is just me talking completely on the side of like these videos that I saw. Like there were really epic tank battles in the last war. It was cool. It was cool seeing these, right? I don't know if you guys saw any footage from the last war of some of these tank battles, but they were.
Yeah, I think I did, and a lot. I'm actually really glad that flanking is a thing when they have room to do it, and they're not on the island maps. But yeah, I'll never get tired of a good flank. That's always my thing on the front line, not just with infantry vehicle or whatever. But hey, Spots, thank you so much for coming in with your question. Duly appreciate it. Kind of have to cut it short because we have to get moving. But Spots, thank you.
No problem.
All right, coming up next is Disc and Lek. There we go.
Lek. There we go.
All right, welcome back, gentlemen. Welcome back to Zero Dark Presscorps. What do you have for us?
Disc?
Go ahead, Lek. I can let you go ahead.
My point kind of springs off yours. Very, very in a weird aside way, but go first.
No, I want you to go first. Like I want you to hear.
Clock is ticking, gentlemen.
No, don't say that. Disc actually has a stopwatch ready.
Okay, I want to start with a prayer to the Holy War. Thank you very much, Markfoot, for letting us have the number 69. Okay. It's a very interesting war, and it's a very special war for us as a community. All right.
Question: why didn't you go with the that initial layout, the fucking 2 circles with only Cal Pass in the middle? That would have been great.
I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
Hold on. Like I'll let you train on. Let me continue, okay? So I want to continue on the topic of personalized tanks, okay? Like you talked about that earlier. I want to know, is that ever in the works? Because I think a lot of tankers get really attached to their tanks, and I think some markings would be really, really cool to have on tanks. Just some simple markings to just identify the tanks from like the millions of other tanks around them.
I really want to see it happen. was talking to Max about this last week, and you know, we were talking about that idea that I was discussing earlier. It's like a brainstorm where I was like, man, it would be just so cool if eventually you can kind of preserve a tank and maybe it goes into the next war and you can name it and you can just see. This will be my personal fantasy version of this, right? With no idea yet on how it could practically work, right?
Confirmed. Got it. Go.
But what would be amazing is if you destroyed a tank that mattered a lot to a whole bunch of people, and it was like, man, this tank survived 4 wars, and now we were the ones who took down this tank, and that tank
wars.
Yeah.
So, you mean battles or wars?
Wars.
I'm talking about wars.
We were talking about this earlier with Zach. Yeah.
There's a whole context behind this, and we went through all this discussion about like wars, but not what you think. Not like you get a war at the start of the next war. So
oh, you mean like the caches that you did that time?
No.
This is different.
That's exactly what I was saying. It's not going to be right. But
all right.
Anyways, if you missed the context, I'll stop talking about it.
Yeah. Sorry. Anyways, I really want to talk about something else. I just want to talk about that for a little second. Okay, so I just want to mention a tank imbalance that I've noticed these days, okay? I've noticed that the Silverhand has been nerfed at the same time the Tank Destroyer has been added. And I'm just going to add that it's not very fun for the Warrens right now, even though, like, I will admit the Warrens were pretty superior before.
So the complaint is the ATLT is too powerful, and
well, first of all, if we look at the Kroneska and the TD, like the LTD, whatever, the Tank Destroyer, the Kroneska is just superior to any light tank that I don't know if you consider Silverhand a light tank, but it's just superior to any light tank that the Wardens have. Like the light tank, the armored light tank of the Wardens is just inferior because it has extra armor, but it can't go as fast, so it's just inferior at the end, right? I just don't understand why there should be that giant gap of inferiority for nothing.
Yeah, I can I think that some of these issues we'll be in a better position to tackle once more of these gaps are filled, and I think that this is it's kind of like some there's other examples of this in the game, but I really think that once there's more there, then it'll be easier, right? It'll be easier for us to not have to make these. It'll be easier to balance. Maybe I'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I knew I was gonna get that answer, but I just wanted to mark my unsatisfaction from that. Okay. So, continuing on, I wanted to make a little point about the problem with the gap between the BT, which used to exist, rest in peace, and the light tank, which I believe there's too much of a gap between the two. Is there ever any works to just create something new instead of creating only variants of all the tanks?
A variant?
An actual new design, I don't know, a medium tank or something like that?
Sorry, can you be more clear on that? Do you mean, yeah, I guess I don't quite understand the question.
What I'm saying is, I don't know if the dev team has noticed, but between the BT, which requires a large crew, requires a lot of training, requires a lot of things, and the light tank, which is a fast, easy to use little tank that can just make easily and die. Yeah. Has there ever been any thought that maybe there should be something between them, that should bridge the gap?
You mean like a
medium tank? You were saying?
Yes, a medium tank. I require a medium tank.
Do you think one would fit first and foremost, or would it feel arbitrary? I don't know.
Well, personally, I think that the light tanks and its variants, they fit their own niche roles, like the Kroneska, which can go fast and stuff, and I don't know, the Warren light tank, the armored one. I don't know where it
There's
fits.
nothing
still.
really interesting that differentiates it from the normal one. Though, admittedly, there's nothing really for this Korneska either. The Korneska is just better.
Yeah, that's true. So what I'm saying is the BT, which, like I said, it requires a lot of coordination from basically like the logistics and like the tank crews and everything because it's so hard to handle. There should be something in between the two that requires like more effort than the light tank and also like just as easier to use than the BT.
Are you talking about the Colonial specifically? Because
Oh no. I mean, the Silverhand is kind of what I would imagine a medium tank would be like, but I don't like. I can see that that the dev team doesn't really want the Silverhand to be a medium tank, right? I think you guys just want it to be more like a strike tank that just like attacks and then moves back and stuff, right? Am I wrong with that?
I don't think that's exactly a direct goal. I think that's, I mean, if that's how it's kind of being used and that's its optimal use, then yeah, I mean, that's its role right now. But I guess, so what you're getting at is like not like the Silverhand, but just another class that is, so you're trying to say, in your ideal world, subtract out the Silverhand.
Yes. I want the Silverhand kind of gone, actually.
Add in a new tank that is a step above the light tank, but doesn't require a separate role to do the reloading. Like, is that sort of what you're thinking of? And it also isn't kind of like a two turret type of thing like the Silverhand. It's more of a standard one, not a two turret, like a two gun thing, like a Silverhand. Rather, it be more like a light tank. It's just like one gun, right?
Something that's easier to use for people that aren't like connected very well with the logistics of like supply their tanks, right? Something that isn't as like really hard to like maintain the supply as a BTE.
So how do you? I guess the question would be, this is just first of all, yes, I think to plainly answer the question, I think there's definitely room for that, and I think there are things in our roadmap that is going to satisfy that. So that's, if you just want the plain answer there, right? Absolutely, 100%. I guess the one question that I have for you is, how would you balance that in such a way to keep the light tanks relevant, or would you be okay with that sort of superseding the light tanks as soon as it's out in the tech tree?
Well, the light tanks always have the speed, which is what makes them superior. And I actually believe that normal light tanks, the one that are in the Korneskas, should be faster because that's what they're supposed to be for, right? Just going really fast, striking, and then just going back with the flanking maneuvers. The Korneska does that extremely well, and I think that it's really good at that role, and that's why people really like it. Like the Warrens just steal it all the time because it's just so fun to use.
Yeah, there's actually something unfortunate I gotta mention is that there were some changes to the light tank speed that we had planned and made, but due to a bug, it didn't make it into the last update. It was supposed to be a part of buffing the light tanks. Anyways, that's a complete side.
Wait, so the speed update is only coming with this next update?
I believe some of those changes that we had planned will happen in this update.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, something that's not as fast as a light tank, right? But also doesn't have the power of a BT, which I think, it shouldn't have two turrets because it shouldn't have the power of BT, right? The BT should be its own thing that is used specifically for destroying things you want to be killed, right?
Yep.
Yeah, but the medium tank should be easier to use for people that aren't really wanting to, like, have a crew of 5 that they have to yell at and do things at, and, like, just completely, like, really hard to do, honestly.
What would be the ideal, like, positions in your medium tank?
Well, for one, of course, the engineer has to go away. Well, you'd have the driver, the gunner, the commander, of course. But it could also be, in my opinion, I think there's also work. There's also, like, a lot of people always want to have LMGs on their tanks. But I think that the light tank shouldn't have its own LMG because I think it just wouldn't make it too much of a, like, universal tank, even though it should be its own thing. So I think the medium tank should have it, like, like an LMG mounted on it or something that another crew member can use. so that it actually like be a little bit more universal in the light tank. That should be like the light tank itself should be more used.
So you're talking about like something like a Sherman with like a machine gun on it.
Yeah, but not like an M2 on it, just an LMG, because like the HMG should, the MMG should stay on the BT, or else
Maybe a ball
irrelevant. Yeah,
we'll see.
Something that's simply for sweeping up some infantry.
Yeah,
in one direction
just so
only.
It's not as like worthless against infantry as the light tank.
Hey Lek, do you have a question as well for us?
Yeah, I have. Well, the point I was coming in here to make was I'm not sure if disc was done, so I was waiting my turn. But
no, I'm pretty done. You can go.
Okay, so it was actually somewhat related to the thing he initially talked about, but in the complete opposite way.
Okay.
He initially came in here to talk about personalization of vehicles. I'm here to talk about Mark. This is an issue that I feel is pressing for everyone in the community. When do you think we could have vehicle logs that will let us figure out who the hell is leaving all these random vehicles and trucks of supplies at the borders for enemies to steal? When do you think we could get such technology in order to report the malicious activities that are currently ongoing?
Yeah, if it's a moderation question, I think that getting more information. So here,
we can't go into specific cases.
No.
This has nothing to do with any specific case.
No, it's not a specific case, and I'm perfectly
okay.
happy. I'm perfectly happy to talk about this one. I'm just trying to not give you a vague answer, so I'm trying to think of how I can give you as concrete of an answer as possible. I would like to add more logging into the game within the next 3 to 4 months. Like before 1.0, I would like to see us do one pass at least on adding it, not just specifically for vehicles, but just in general, having more information exposed to players, not just simply so that they can try to catch whatever, like a griefer. That's one goal, but I think the other thing is also to, in cases, to help players to avoid situations that might be misconstrued as griefing. Like maybe a new player took a truck because they thought that they never played Foxhole, they didn't know the rules, and maybe they made a mistake, right? And you might look at it and be like, oh, a PTE did this. Maybe someone that's paranoid might think it's alt account or something. But the hope is that more information is better, and I hope we can do a pass on that.
Such as, for example, a situation that sometimes happens is where you have a truck and then someone thinks that they're driving off with someone else's truck or whatnot, and the ability to just look in the truck and look at a log of, was it actually your truck, or were you getting angry at someone else for no reason?
Yeah, and I think even just one thing I'm not going to promise this feature. This is more something, I think more logs is something I think practically speaking is feasible. I think sort of beyond that, a more exploratory idea that I would like to see eventually is just being able to attach a note to a vehicle, right? And maybe if some new player, or maybe there would have been like a misunderstanding that could be resolved if you went to a truck and it's like hey, look, like I'm using this, and then the player's like, oh, okay, well, I didn't know. Now that I know, I'm not gonna take it, or just more information to get to people, because things they're certainly griefing, and in some of these cases, I don't doubt that what you're seeing is griefing, but other times there could be different things that can happen, right? Like a truck being at the border could have been some sort of travel issue, or maybe a
not when I say at the border, I don't specifically mean at the border itself, so it could be construed as that. I more so mean like there's a random rock out in the middle of nowhere, or maybe it's the bulwark, or maybe it's like a mountain, and then there's randomly just a truck left behind it somewhere, like outside of watchtower range, not necessarily purposefully hidden there. If it would be against the border, as if it was border traveling, it would most often be near a road, right? But I'm talking about just randomly out in the middle of nowhere where no one would find it unless they knew about it or randomly happened upon it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think if the question is, are we going to add more logging? I think the answer is I hope to see that in the next 3 to 4 months.
The reasoning, part of the reason behind that is also because the reason you guys got rid of the player mods is because you guys said that you want players to be able to resolve issues on our own via the ticket system you created. And it's hard to do that when you can't figure out names or you can't figure out who did something, right?
Yeah, no, I agree.
All right, that's all I had to say. I have a lot more I want to, but I won't bother you. I'll probably get you on a later date. We were having a brilliant conversation up in the lounge about polish and long-term stuff, but this is something that I feel like it needs more urgent attention, going into the future, because I feel like it's something that's been long unresolved, and I've been seeing more issues of it recently.
Thanks.
All right. That's kind of we're kind of done our.
Yep.
We're gonna close this call out with that. Hey, gentlemen, thank you so much. I hope we can tackle more things as 1.0 comes up, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with specifically what we got for you, Lek. We'll see. Okay, I'll be ominous. All right, coming up next is actually a written question from 82DK's MREBoy, and I quote: "A recent rules update for Zero Dark Presscorps callers used the word regiment or regimental 12 times in total." I did use that, and I'm not going to lie, that is me trying to convince Mark to use the word regiment instead of the word clan, because I hate the word clan. I don't know why, it just bothers me. Anyway, to go on, this reminded me that a screenshot of a prototype regiment system user interface was shown some time ago, and we have not heard much since. Can we get an update on this, and would this system be released prior to 1.0 or after? Also, when will Shipyards have cranes? We'll answer that one in a bit. But yeah, Mark, I guess the thing here is, what is the status of implementing the clans and the groups and the regiments into the game for real?
We're working on it, and I really want to see it before 1.0.
Yeah.
Because I feel like one of the things that we do, I want to big systems like that. If we're talking about things that we want to get before 1.0, I mentioned before that it's not going to be a revolutionary change, but some of the stuff that I want to make sure is well tested. There's certain systems I want to see that are well tested, and I think the regiment system or a clan system, I wouldn't want to just launch that at 1.0 because it could have problems, right? And if we're going to get a lot of players, then I want them to be using a system that has had at least a couple of updates.
But they need something, right? So yeah, hopefully before.
Yeah, so I think it won't be too long. Yeah.
Okay. All right, and yeah, when will Shipyards have cranes? Assuming that they will.
Shipyards.
Shipyards, yes.
That's an interesting one. I haven't heard too much about that, so.
I think he talked about it before. He mentioned, he goes on to write, "I mentioned this to Mark on a previous press corps, and he said it was a good idea. If he wants, I can DM him a whole write-up about Shipyards." Let me just say, please, anything that you have to share, post it on Reddit. If you want the public to see it, please, I encourage you to post it on Reddit, post it in Discord. You're going to get downvoted to hell. People are going to call you stupid, make vision memes, but it's fine, at least as long as it's for people there to see.
He's talking about shipyards and not seaports, obviously. Right? So, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Any status on that? Maybe yes, no, maybe eh.
It's not. No, it's not. It's not being worked on. It's not being worked on right now. If we hear more about it, maybe it'll get moved up, right? Or maybe we'll take a look at it.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But they will happen, I guess, is what he really wants to know.
There's no plans right now.
Yeah.
That's never a hard no of never.
Okay.
You know me.
Neither yes nor no. Okay, so that was MREBoy's written question, and he is a part of the 82DK. As per the regimental rules, we will now have a non-82 DK person, and the next 3 callers are 82 DK. So I will have to go to the next not 82 DK person, which is Lafarfade from the Warden Navy. Welcome back, Lafarfade. How are you?
I just want to say that I am an individual.
Yeah.
Part of organization.
I saw the writing.
Mm-hmm. Give me 30 seconds to organize my thought because we were literally in the middle of a discussion.
Yeah, I know. That's a flaw in the system that I just won't go away. So.
And there was like a bunch of people before me. So
but no, yeah, but they're all part of 82 DK. Okay. So you're the first one, as per the rules that you suggested. This is we're getting you in here.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So Mark, how is it in Toronto right now? Is it snowing?
No, it's not. But thanks.
You guys enjoying the curfew you're about to get?
It's all a blur, to be honest.
I'm telling you, you're not looking forward to the sirens coming up at 8 o'clock and the cops just fucking roaming the streets with the lights turned on. That's a bit weird, but anyway, I digress. Mark,
yeah.
where's my harvester?
It's where it was last time, which is
wrong answer.
I'm trying to recall. Okay, so you wanted harvesters
that can harvest bunkers.
That can harvest bunkers. Yeah,
yes.
I remember that. Yeah. Sorry, man. It no change in status at this point. I regret to say.
Wrong answer. Okay, so.
All right, coming up next, our next caller. No. All right, what do you got? What do you got for us, really?
So, yeah, no, but I do really like. I'm making a meme every time I talk, but I do. Really
we know. Yeah.
I do really want to have that feature implemented.
Yeah.
No, I'm. There's 2 things today with the road to 1.0. Like by the time we're you guys having me here, you know that I don't really talk about suggestion to implement in the game and stuff. I'm talking more the business side and the infrastructure of Clapfoot. So. The question I have for you guys is, with the road to 1.0 coming, and with the talks we had about project management and where the project is going and stuff, do you guys feel like you might make a mistake to go to 1.0 too quickly? So you guys cannot capitalize on the big influx of players that are going to come with the... You know, I'm always looking when a game comes out of early access or 1.0 or beta and stuff like that. You always see on Steam the big title on the Steam page, like, "Oh, game now released or whatever, or out of early access and stuff like that." Aren't you guys scared a bit that you guys are gonna miss on capitalizing with all that publicity that you can get, the potential publicity you can get?
Yeah, no, it's important. It's an important thing to think about, and I think it's a valid point, right? But I think at the same time, yes. I mean, short answer is, you know, we do want to capitalize, but at the same time, I don't think we like to think in the way of like placing bets on one particular point in time. Like, we've been grinding at this for 4 years now. We're going to continue to grind at this. So I don't think there's going to be some sort of point where it's like, hey, well, this is a make it or break it point for the game. There's important points, just like how the big updates are very important for us, like Arms Race is important for us, Trench Warfare was, this upcoming winter update is going to be, and 1.0 is going to be important. But I don't think we have any kind of like, let's just, you know, if this doesn't work out, this is going to be the end, right? And I think that's one thing I'm trying to...
Right. Yeah, I don't think anyone's saying that necessarily, but...
okay. I don't think it's...
Sorry, I misunderstood. Yeah.
Yeah, because my mind on it, and I have a kind of a business-driven mind on it rather than just I'm a player, play Foxholes, is if... And like I said, like we've talked about my background before, I've never been in game development. I've always been in working in school projects and like working with schools who have them do projects and stuff. So when you're like there's always a big influx of player when a game goes 1.0. And I don't know, like you guys have an interaction with Steam as a client of yours, or as a don't really quite know the interaction you guys are having with Steam. Like if you guys are a client or if they're, because Foxhole doesn't have a publisher, right? Or is the publisher Clapfoot?
Yeah, we're
Self-published.
So we work like
Yeah.
any other self-published games on Steam. So like a game like Squad is self-published, and we're kind of in a similar seat like that. Is games like Factorial. These are all self-published games. Yeah.
Those are all great time sync also.
Yeah, for sure.
But the question I have is, when you guys are going 1.0, are you guys gonna have the big front page Steam Foxhole 1.0 release?
Yeah, that sort of thing is it's a complex question, because it's when you go 1.0, it's something I can't talk about directly, because
I understand it might be a sensitive issue. Yeah.
it's
Will
sensitive,
1.0
not
be a
just on our end.
celebration? Will 1.0?
Well, I guess just to
Well,
kind of
it's really not about the celebration, because with the people, like I said, the people that play Foxholes on the daily, it's not gonna change much for us. It's just gonna be another update. But for the people that don't play Foxholes, or the streamers or all stuff, it's like, hey, this game is just come out of 1.0. This is Foxhole. This is the experience.
okay.
So
So
I don't think
yeah.
I don't think it's a make or break moment, but it can be a really big make moment.
So I'm trying to, because I got your question wrong the first time, and I apologize. So I'm trying to get the question right this time. Is your question that are we going to put some big consideration into marketing and trying to
Yes.
get as much marketing? Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
So streamer codes and all that stuff. I don't care. I'm not a streamer, but
Yeah, I think we're gonna put our best foot forward, just like any other developer, right? I don't think we're gonna just like my point is, when I talk about things like, hey, it's just gonna be like another update. I'm not saying that we're not gonna put our best forward in marketing the game and trying to capitalize on 1.0. It's more like I'm trying to be transparent about it, and I don't want to.
what you're trying to say is not going to be the be all and end all.
Like, I don't want to set
1.0.
expectations that I know are probably not going to be met. There's games in the past, I'm not going to name specific games, that just overhyped.
Cyberpunk.
Right, like things.
I'm sorry, what?
No, I'm not talking about that. Just like in general, right? There's you can go in the past, whatever, 5, 10, 20 years. There's many examples of this, and I just, where it comes from, that's where it's coming from. Just trying to be as straight as possible about that, right?
I think I've come to the conclusion, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like 1.0 is actually more for the dev team than for everyone else. And I don't, obviously you are providing updates for everyone else. I'm not saying that, but it sounds like 1.0 is kind of like, it's something that the devs need, is what I'm hearing from you, Mark, as opposed to something that is actually like above and beyond for everyone else to consider. Because to me, when I hear 1.0, like, that is huge. That is something you will never, that is an opportunity. You will never get back in a game. Even like games like No Man's Sky, right? They are given the incredible privilege of having the reputation as like clawing back from that they do now. And they will never get that 1.0 chance again.
Exactly.
So I wonder if maybe
I would argue that a little bit.
Okay.
Actually, because I feel like one of No Man's Sky's later updates was I believe it was Next, where they added the multiplayer. Was
Right.
They actually had more players, according to Sean Murray, the
Right.
the lead dev's talk. He was actually saying that they had more players, and a game like Warframe, right, is another example that came out, and it was a fraction, right?
Yeah, Warframe is literally Warframe. The way I see that game is literally the benchmark for what free to play should be.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that's our goal that we're trying to replicate that, but I guess it's sort of my pushback to that argument that it is the end of the line. I think in a lot of ways it's another step, but if there is some substantial thing, because this is something I missed earlier when talking about 1.0, I think if there is one thing that I feel will get better, is that during early access, and I think this is something that we didn't do a very good job at, and it's relevant to this particular conversation, is that we spent for for us early access was uh, us being able to try out a lot of things, and a lot of things changed. Where in the eyes of especially the older players, was perceived as and rightfully so, perceived as like, why are they making these changes? Nobody asked for this, and this and that. And I think in our eyes, we miscommunicated that we 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 were taking the opportunity to do these sort of stressful changes in early access. So if it fails, we have time to change it. So I think if there is one thing that I do think will get better, in quotes, for players, is that we don't intend to suddenly um, flip the whole game, uh, like
Upside
flip
down.
the tables upside down after 1.0 in such frequency and intensity that we've done in early access. We're gonna make big changes. We're gonna add cool features, but I would like to think that, or not even I would like to think. I think one of our goals is that we don't want to put the player base through those kind of stresses after 1.0, and I think in that regard, if there is some sort of like, hey, maybe there is some aspect of this whole thing that will feel a little different. It I hope it's that, and I hope after 1.0 it'll be more just And here's another thing: with less focus on that, I'm hoping there'll be more focus on just the because we're not like changing giant things all the time. We'd be able to focus more on things like quality of life and these sorts of things that I think we hear a lot about, right? So yeah.
Um,
All right.
just as a closing note, do you guys? Well, first of all, you guys have a second podcast. I'm sorry, Geoffrey, but you guys have a non-Foxhole related podcast with the team. So with Julian and the other guy that I always forget his name, but he's
HB?
I'm sorry.
HB and Matt? Or?
HB, yeah. I always forget their names. I don't know why. Would it be possible to have that type of things? The stream just dropped, by the way, Geoffrey.
Oh, did it?
Yeah. So would it be a thing? Like, would it be possible to have callers on a stream like you do for that?
Are you talking about our dev stream? Like,
Oh, he's talking about Clapfoot After Dark.
Yeah.
Oh, Clapfoot After. I mean, okay, so that thing.
As long as no one talks about Foxhole, because that's like the one rule is that don't talk about Foxhole.
Of course.
If that's something you got to ask with Matt, because that is entirely run by Matt and HB, and I have almost no involvement in that, and that's something that they just do it, I think, in part from what they told me, because especially now during this this whole COVID situation, it's just a chance for them to talk and kind of like hang out, and like it's just kind of a bonus that people are watching. So really fire that off to HB, and see what his thoughts are on that, because I it's all in their hands. It's not in mine.
No, I understand, but it's because like when I come to the stream, like the last time I came and talked to you, it was like I'm talking about business management and stuff, and I'm like, there's some people here that want to ask, hey, I want to tank with that one thing. They're just lonely mole me talking about, hey, how are you guys managing your projects and stuff? That felt a bit weird in like a Presscorps stream,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, LaFarfade, thank you so much for calling in. Appreciate it.
All right. See you later.
All right. Well, we are at the top of the second hour, or at the end of the second hour. Mark, how many more you got, if at all?
I think I got one more, actually.
You got one more?
Yeah, I said I was gonna do until 10, but I'll give you. Yeah.
Okay.
Just one more. Yeah.
Okay, so the next on the list is Kassandros from 82DK. Kassandros, do you want to still want to go alone?
Me go alone? Yeah, so I still want to go alone.
Okay. This is the last call. Go ahead.
Oh, this is the last call? Okay. Well, first of all, g'day, Mark. How's it going?
Great, thanks. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. So I have 2 points that I want to make today, based on the tech system and on some quality of life suggestions and points that I want to make for logistics. But first and foremost, I'll get onto the tech stuff. At current, as a player of Foxhole, I don't want to engage with the current tech system at all. I find it unintuitive and unfun to play. That's just one point that I want to make. And a main suggestion that I want to make for it is bringing back that original tree type system where you have like a linear tree. I don't like the current tiers. With the main reason for that I don't like them is because you get locked out of tech, and the consequence for that makes certain situations unfun. In many cases, you want to have some of the nice tools in the ways of vehicles and even items in the game. For instance, bayonets and grenade launchers. The choice between those, for me, feels, if I choose grenade launchers, yes, I have an advantage in long-range engagements to remove buildings and try and decrew vehicles. But without bayonets, there's a lot of instances where I love using bayonets to rush trenches. So you see that for many players, that comes back to a fun aspect of the game. Like removing those items makes the game less fun. And I just want to get an opinion on changing that system, if there is any guys to changing that system at all in the future.
I guess to clarify, your main issue is that you can't use certain things like bayonets and other things that you just feel are missing from your experience.
Yeah, to the most part, yeah.
Because they get teched out, they get locked out.
Yes.
They get locked out. I think that there are certain things that if there is that feeling, I think either the possible ways it can go is we can try to make some of those things not locked out. Like maybe it's just a default thing. Like I think someone was talking earlier about the field hospital. Like there's no reason why. Well, I think that was a different complaint. I think that was more like, why do you have to wait for it, right?
Yeah.
But I think something like, just not even having a bayonet, if that feels like there's just this crushing missing part in the war, I think we would want to either provide more options so that on the average you don't have to miss out on those things, or another wilder possibility, and this is a bit more exploratory, is maybe there's other ways you can get these things besides the tech tree, right? So I guess just to get a bit more details on this, what besides the bayonet, what other, is it just like you feel that way about like everything and you want to make everything, or is it specific things that you feel are worse, like kind of worse off because of this than others?
I find it's certain things as well as much of an overarching thing, because you find that not just for me, there's a few things. For other players, there's going to be different things. But for instance, one example here that I find basically covers everything is how many times in the last, or since Arms Race, has the FMG been teched, right? How many times has that been used in a war? How many times have we even been able to make it? No one's going to tech it because its niche isn't met. Like, there's something on that line that's better. It's going to be like, what, a truck or something is on that line at the same time, or an armored car. You're going to take that because it has better mobility. It has more benefits to have early on. But by the time you get back through the tech tree, an FMG is useless because, for instance, BTs, LTs just completely outshine those early game vehicles. So having even armored cars locked out until that tech tree reiterates back again, there's no point using it at that later stage. Even vetted isn't beneficial in any way because it's just going to get outclassed by a light tank or an LTD, for instance, that's just going to shoot it once and it dies.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. No, I hear you on the. I think the tier system is one of those experiments that definitely didn't. When I mean tier, I mean like the wraparound, right?
Yeah,
I don't think that's definitely not working out like how.
it was
Um,
planned to.
so yeah, so specifically things like bayonets and things that you want to use because like you feel not being able to use things like FMG subtracts out the fun of using something like FMG, and you're feeling like, hey, I
Yeah,
haven't been able to use like an FMG for so long.
yeah.
You wish you
It's
could, right?
it's like well, not just the FMG. It comes back in my personal view and opinion. Bayonets fun. FMGs when I use them and you use them correctly, they're fun. Armored cars with those two things, armored cars and FMGs. It's the more to the point with those. Their early game, well, their role is in the early game, right? By the time they iterate back around, they're removed. But bayonets is fun, and then the other side of the story and the other side of the coin is when those vehicles are in the tier system, like where they are, like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, they're basically early game things, right? For instance, you could have, an armored car or the tracked armored car, but you have to like wait for it because you teched something else and they get outshined by the time that wraps around again. That's not fun for someone that wanted to use an armored car. It gets vetted, and now they have their vetted armored car, which is great because it's upgraded and stuff. They use their armored car, and then a BT kills them in 2 seconds. That's not fun, right?
Yeah, no, I don't think that system is working very well. So I'm in agreement. I'm in agreement on that specific point. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Can I actually kind of zoom out and kind of going back to what we were talking about? I don't know if Kassandros, if you were listening to, or I think it was with Zach, about all this in general. Is that I don't know. I just feel like what I think it's. I think the intent. To repeat myself, that the intended strategic, feeling of having to choose between two things in a tech tree is just lost completely. I don't even think that there's like absolutely no benefit to having it anymore. From a game design point, there's just no benefit to even having things locked out at all. It's not even like on a case by case basis. I just think I don't know. I think that I think I'm of the opinion now, or I'm at the point where I don't think anything should be locked out. Period. Not even like a pacing thing where it's like, yeah, maybe like after two things later in the tier you go back. No, I don't know. I don't think there's a point anymore. Like the strategic aspect is lost completely, even if it was balanced.
I 100% agree with that. I think you could have a system either by going back to the old style of system where it was just a linear system where one thing after another, or if you want to keep this tier style thing going, you could just have it once you get to the next thing, you can go back, like once you do one tier, you can go down to the next tier and then go back, and that there's like I don't know, 80% chance or 50% chance to tech stuff that you missed, right? Or something like that. Or and then as you get further down, that chance increases. Like, once you're 2 tiers down from a tier, the first tier, for instance, you can go back and it's an 80% chance, right? That sort of thing. So instead of, having the same way that you have that tech chance for later tiers, you get a reverse style for previous tiers, right? That could work. I don't really know. I'm just spitballing game design stuff here. So.
Yeah, and I'm completely pulling the overton window in this case by bringing this up, but like, I don't know. Do we? Why do we have tech at all? Like, why do people need to tech these things to begin with? Right? What is the point? I don't know.
Like I do, this is such a rabbit hole discussion.
It is, and I'm sorry to make it the last call, and I'm sorry to completely
I feel like I don't.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say that like I feel that discussing that at this point in time is probably it's a bit tough because there's I can give you answers for all these things, right? And we have talked about them in the past, but this is like a long conversation, and then I'm already picturing in my mind. I know sort of I can give you the reasons, right? And then there's reasons against that reason, or and then there's reasons against the reasons against the reasons. But I think to kind of come back down to earth a little bit, I think I would like to talk about like specific things that we feel are just highly missing, like the bayonet, or if you feel like the FMG is never used, or like the armored car, just to kind of like steer it back into a more practical thing that we can action, right? Sooner at least. I think I would, it's good to hear that, right? Because I think that is something, if FMGs are always getting starved out, that's a problem. Or if something like a bayonet feels so fundamental to the game that it should never be locked out, or it could be other things. Maybe there's other things that just should never be a choice. It should just be part of a moving more things into the baseline, right? I think that's something that at least in the short run is easier for us to action, right? So if there's more things there that you feel, hey, maybe it should just flat out be something you can always make, just kind of like a truck. Maybe even something as wild as maybe like an armored car. Maybe there should always be a baseline armored car that everyone can just make, right? I think
I think would it be safe to say that if the data has shown that something always gets teched out, at that point, just don't even make it a choice. Have both things available, so at least the niche is there.
Yeah, and we have done things like that on a case by case basis before, but maybe it can be even more. For example, just going back to the bayonet, maybe that doesn't, why is that even in the tech tree? Maybe it should just be able to make it at the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I find as well the item tech tree in itself. You choose between revolver, shotgun, bayonet, grenade launcher. The choices down that line. Yes, the carbine and the sniper are basically upgrades of the rifle, but then the LMG and the storm rifle fulfill the same role in a way, but the detriment that the LMG is heavier, it just never gets tech because the storm rifle has more adept use. You can use it more efficiently and in more cases, I guess. And it now costs BMATs, which is a massive benefit for that weapon in itself. But yeah, so there's those choices in that line, in that tree, in the tier system. I don't think there should be a choice between weapons, like infantry weapons at least. So I think you should just have one thing in each of those tiers as the choice to just tech the tier, and then you unlock everything on that line. That would be really, really good in my personal opinion, but I don't know your team's view on that, and I don't really. But I would like to know what the team's view is on that.
Yeah, it's well, again, I would just I think a part of it is just hearing this from you, and just we have to think about it, right? Like I don't think there's I think it's good to hear those few things, and if there's other things that you feel like are kind of in this category of like never teched and it's sort of being pushed aside, we'd want to hear about it. But yeah,
because it feels like I think the main reason the shotgun never gets teched is because it's a confetti cannon. So that could be fixed in a way that you buff the shotgun, maybe, or you just make it so that it unlocks automatically. Who knows, really, in that way. But I think that there are just a few things that spoil the overall enjoyment of the game, and then they all sort of come back to the tech tree. It just, for me personally, that's where I just want to round off that last point, because I do want to, if we still have time, get to a few quality of life things for logistics, if that's all right.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's a fair point. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're gonna close out with that, unless you feel like the QL things are.
I can, are they short or are they deep, like philosophical type?
No, I'm not going to go into some the meaning of life. No.
Yeah. All right, let's go. Let's go for it.
So the main one that I want to bring up is transportation in Foxhole for logistics. You're spending a lot of your time driving, yeah, and I find the main thing, I don't mind personally sitting around in a scrap field mining with a sledgehammer or a harvester or whatever, right? It's that transport time afterwards, back and forth, that's monotonous. But I can understand in one region you could do that. But the main point that I find is those longer drive times the logistics guys have to do from point A in the back line to point B at the front line takes a long time. But you've got these now storage depots all spread out around the map. Yeah, I think a nice little quality of life change could be having those storage depots connected some way, so that not connected like instantly connected, but connected so that you have a system at a backline storage depot. You can be like, I want to send 15 crates of X items down to, I don't know, Marvin Hollow from Viper Pit, right? And it just has a timer, right? So that you don't have to have that guy drive there, but he could say, set up, he wants to send 15 crates of rifles down to that other depot, and it takes, instead, driving, it might take 15 minutes, but on this timer system, it would take 30. So there would be like, it's like the mass production factory over the normal factory, but for driving.
Let me meet you halfway. What if we had trains so that it was kind of automated, but not really?
Yeah, like it's like there is the trains argument. I'm saying in the short term, you could implement a system like this rather than trains, because I think there's a few issues that need to be sorted out with trains. Like, what happens when Partisan Man comes along with a satchel charge? Like, there's that sort of thing with trains. But I think short term.
Yeah, but I think just, I don't know. I think it's a hard no from me. Even if it is a worse option, I don't know. Automatically transporting things out of thin air between two spots without someone moving them. I don't know.
Well, if there is something I can sympathize with, there is the driving across multiple regions in a truck. I'm hoping there's remedies to that before 1.0, because I played a lot of logistics and I know that pain. Like some of these cases, especially in some places, like Weathered Expanse, coming down from that Logi town to even supply something in Endless Shore, which is technically not that far. It's only one region to cross, but because the location of that town and the roads, it can feel like a really long drive, right? And if you have to cross, more than that, I feel like that level of driving grind. If I'm to sympathize, I do get that, and I don't like disagree that, that should get better in the future. I don't see that as like, yes, that's part of the vision to make you go through tons of pain and drive 4 regions across. That's supposed to be fun. No, I don't think that's supposed to be fun. And I think in my perfect world, if we're talking about like a dream scenario, is that players on most of the time are only driving either in the region or one region across, and anything that is more than that should be handled by some sort of faster, not like a magical transport system, but a faster system, like maybe better transport over water, or maybe something like a railway, or that's my perfect world, is that no one's doing these like 3 region drives.
Yeah, because we do have a redeploy system now where you go to the home island and then you can fast travel to another spot. It's like, I'm bored here at Endless Shore. All right, fast travel now. I'm in Fisherman's Row, right? For whatever reason, like you can do that.
Yeah,
that's a possibility. So that is a thing. So we do have that.
Yeah, and just another point to like limit just overall driving time would be, you're driving between like small distances between the refinery, storage depots in towns. Yeah, these are all small distances, and you're still using a truck to do all of this. It'd be nice if you could just sort of, I don't know, you could even put these things on text later in the tech tree, for instance. That's just one point as well I want to make. But you could have it so that your refinery sort of connects to the factory, and then your personal storage in the refinery, you can sort of just, I want to make crates of stuff at the factory. You just go to the factory and you have your entire pool of resources that you've made accessible to you in the factory. So you don't have to like go there to the refinery with a truck and then drive to the refinery and do it. But within the same town as that refinery is located. So if you wanted to go, use the factories in Saltbrook, you'd have to take the resources there yourself, yeah? But like, refinery town like Kirknell, like you could do it all there yourself.
Let me ask the deep philosophical question, because we are going there, but let me ask the philosophical question of why aren't Why are production buildings spread out amongst like 3 buildings? Why aren't they just one building?
You know what I gotta say to that is that it used to actually be more buildings in the old.
It was more buildings.
Right,
It
right.
was more buildings.
So, oh yeah, I remember that. I do remember those days. I think I do. But like, why aren't they just one? Let's address that philosophical baseline first.
Like you're talking about putting a
From resource to final product, from you know the
because
scrap
there needs
to the. Mhm.
because there needs to be a way to say, hey, I want a refinery in this town, but I don't want a factory in that town, right? So there's just like it's just level design flexibility to, if you have everything in one building, that means everything has to be everywhere, right?
Okay.
So I think that's kind of the basic answer there. I do though, again going back to what I can sympathize with, playing Logi, is that some of that driving around into town. I don't want to, kind of give you false hope or anything like that, but it is a pain, and I don't know what the clear answer there is. There are some things like, um, maybe there can be a forklift, and the forklift is much easier to drive around in the towns or something like that. It's faster. It just kind of zips around, and you don't get these weird things like when you're in a truck, it's not exactly the easiest thing to drive around in certain towns, right? Maybe there's some things like that. I don't know about things being. You can go really wild, right? Like you can have more kind of. I don't think so. I think philosophically, where it's hard for me to go is things that kind of start the teleportation type of mechanic is I don't that's hard because the whole game is kind of predicated on that not happening, right? On players actually moving things around. So if you break that rule in kind of one place, then you start to like kind of question, well, why can't they, I know this is an extreme example, and it might come off as a bit of like a straw man argument, but it's like then it's like you might question, wait, why do I actually have to drive that far then? Why can't it just
The slippery slope straw man is actually one of the few straw men where it's like, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's actually valid.
Yeah, so
it would just slowly cascade down. Like, why can't this thing teleport?
Because it's a baseline fundamental thing.
Yeah, no, I completely get that situation.
I think one thing that would be cooler, like for example, one thing that really bothers me sometimes, and there's some there's some reasoning behind this, but like for example, driving if there's a resource field that's far from the road, right? I would like one, rather than saying, hey, let's just make all the fields always beside the road and then it's just the same everywhere. It'd be kind of cool if you could build something like a little like minecart or something that can take away some of that pain, right? Like give players the ability to kind of optimize that stuff by
wheelbarrows
building, or like wheelbarrows. I
think we've come full circle. We
have come full circle, and all jokes aside, like I would prefer. Let me just put it this way: I would prefer a wheelbarrow, a forklift, or a minecart, even that players
for those
can
short
build
distances. Yeah.
Over a, I'm not saying that stuff's going to happen, but I would prefer that over like a teleportation mechanic. Yeah.
If it came down
Rather
to
than
it,
just
for sure.
having
All right,
connection.
Cassandra, we did go down the rabbit hole, but it was a short one. I'm going to cut it off here. I'm going to cut off the rabbit hole here. Kassandros, thank you so much. Great questions. Appreciate it.
Not a problem. Yeah. Catch you later.
All right. Again, apologies to everyone who is languishing in the call queue. I do hope the people in the call queue are listening. It's not a requirement, of course, but hopefully we can glean something from this in the meantime. Maybe they're having better discussions in the lounge. I don't know. But thank you so much. I hope we can do something to maybe open things up more in terms of maybe more shows more often. We will see. That's a scheduling thing and more of a technical challenge than anything. Actually, really a scheduling thing. But regardless, Mark, thank you so much for taking the 2.5 hours to talk with the community here in the mad dash to get 1.0 done, and a lot of internal meetings, I'm sure. Thank you.
No, thanks for having me again.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
It was everyone's pleasure here. All right. Have a good one. I'm going to make some closing remarks, but thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh boy. All right. Well, I also have to get going as well. Remember, I used to be able to just like, hey, all the leftover callers, let's just get in here. Can't do that anymore. But I do want to say thank you to everyone for all your patience just in the press corps overall. I know we've been kind of laying low, but we do have some exciting things in the works as to what they are, and now I feel like a developer, but as to what they are, I've got to keep my lips closed on them for now. But I think you'll at least appreciate or like some of the end goals, and yeah, we'll just cross that bridge when we get to it. On top of that, I want to thank you for everyone's kind of patience, and just because life's been rough for a lot of people, not just me, but for people in the Corps, for people out just in the Foxhole community in general, and I think we're all feeling some of that long-term fatigue of the game, of the world around us beyond our control. So I'm being really vague and kind of saying platitudes, but man, I really mean it, because it's been a rough couple of months. But I will end by saying, every time someone expresses interest in like, hey, can you like, what are your thoughts on this script? Or like, hey, like, can I add this to my story? Or just like, what are your thoughts on this idea? Where it's like, I don't even like know much about this, but okay, fine. I just want to appreciate everyone's like thinking that my opinion is worth something, and that taking your time to do something with me. I actually really appreciate every single DM, every moment every moment someone wants to talk to me or type something or whatever, or even languishes in the call queue chat. I genuinely do appreciate every single one of you. So you know what? I'm going to end it there, because actually I'm getting choked up. But we're gonna go to music now. We're actually gonna bring back the radio. We haven't done that in a long while, and that's because we are working on some things. But I'm gonna take a break, and we're actually gonna play the damn music I've been working on. Not like original music, just like mastering the arsenal of music that we do have. Don't expect anything like new here, but expect some exciting things later. So enough of the vagueness. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Zero Dark Presscorps. Thank you to developers and all our callers. Good night. Good fight. We'll see you on the other side.
The Presscorps is a non-profit creative collective of artists, reporters, and players from the MMO video game Foxhole by Clapfoot. Our mission is to engross our audience in and amplify the stories of this unique war ecosystem. The Presscorps was founded in early 2018 by former PlanetSide 2 Radio Free Araxis host, Captain-in-Arms. It is a separate community entity and is in no way representative of Clapfoot. For more info, visit the Presscorps Discord through the link below.